Chapter 304, Lord Yang Residence Banquet. Wang Ting was stunned when the princess servant sent him an invitation. Ever since he rejected Li Rongshu's request, the young lady had never looked for him again. He thought that they wouldn't have any interactions again, so this invitation was a little unexpected. What does she want? Wang Ting couldn't help but wonder to himself. The servant was still angry at what had happened in the past, so she wasn't polite to Wang Ting. She snorted when she saw him hesitate. I wonder why the princess must invite you. She flicked her sleeve and left after dropping that sentence. Haha, this little girl has a huge temper. Wang Ting shook his head, but he didn't take it to heart. He glanced at the invitation in his hand before throwing it aside nonchalantly. No matter what plans Li Rongshu had, it would be in vain if he didn't turn up. Wang Ting went back to his room to continue his cultivation. His ability had increased tremendously, but he still needed to work hard. There was still a long path ahead of him. In the afternoon, Wang Ting sat down with Gorlin to have lunch. Su Lingxian was staying in the Yang City Academy recently. Her visits back weren't that frequent, so there were only the two of them now. Without Su Lingxian chattering beside them, the table seemed a little quiet. Lord Yang is having a banquet tonight and has invited me. The other outstanding descendants of the elite families will be following their elders to the banquet too. Wang Teng, you will follow me later, Gorlin suddenly said. Wang Teng was startled. But, almost immediately, he regained his composure and asked, Master, I heard that Lord Yang was poisoned and was confined to bed by sickness. Why is he holding a banquet now? It's said that his poison is cured. I think that Lord Yang is holding this banquet to tell those people with ulterior motives that he has recovered, Gorlin said in a meaningful tone. Recovered? Wang Teng was confused. The purple core herb was with the yarrow family. How did Li Rongshu make the purple core bone revitalizing pill? Did she manage to get the purple core herb from the yarrow family? Or did she find another purple core herb from elsewhere? Many thoughts flashed past Wang Ting's mind, and a smile suddenly rose at the corner of his lips. He felt that this matter had taken an interesting turn. Why do you seem a little shocked? Gorlin looked at Wang Teng and asked. Of course, I am. I heard that Lord Yang's poison is very rare. The Lord Yang residents went through thick and thin to find an antidote but to no avail. How did his poison get cured all of a sudden? Wang Teng smiled as he replied in an ambiguous tone. Heavens probably took a pity on him. Princess Li traveled all around the empire to find a cure for Lord Yang. She was even willing to pay a high price for the spiritual herbs. That's rare, Gorlin smiled and said. Wang Ting just let out a smile, not expressing his opinion. Li Rongshu might be filial, but he didn't have a good impression of her because she had tried to manipulate him. But Wang Ting didn't reject his master. It shouldn't be a problem if he was going with Gorlin. Also, he wanted to take a look at the talents of Yang City. He had been staying in Yang City for 2 months, but he hadn't met all the descendants of the elite families yet. There might even be unexpected gains from this trip. At night, the sky had turned entirely black. However, the Lord Yang residence was shrouded in lights. It was as bright as day. Many people walked in and out of the Lord Yang residence, and the place was bustling. When important figures arrived, the servant at the door would announce their arrivals loudly to show respect. Wang Teng and Gorlin sat in a single-horn horse carriage and came to the Lord Yang residence together. The single-horn horse was a star beast. It had a gentle demeanor with a fast speed, so it got domesticated and became a mode of travel. However, not many people could use the single-horn horse. No matter how gentle it was still a star beast, so it wasn't easy to tame it. It required a considerable amount of manpower and resources. Thus, it was expensive. The single-horn horses Gorlin possessed were gifts from other people. They were usually left in the stable and would only be used occasionally when there were important events. Someone immediately came out to welcome them when the horse carriage stopped at the entrance. Wang Ting jumped down the carriage before helping Gorlin down. At first, he felt that there was no need to hold Gorlin based on his ability. But, Gorlin explained that they needed to take care of their image at important events. They needed to appear noble and respectful. Su Lingxian was the one who helped him in the past. However, she was following her father today, so Wang Ting had to take her place. The servant's heart skipped a beat when he saw Gorlin. He quickly announced loudly, "President Gorlin from the Rune Society is here. President Gorlin, this way, please." A pretty servant came forward and guided them deep into the Lord Yang residence. Wang Ting turned around. Most of the people had to show their invitation before they could enter the residence, yet they were allowed directly. It was his face. It was definitely his face. Master Gorlin's face was so useful. Wang Ting glanced at Gorlin's face with a strange gaze. He knew that he wasn't important enough yet. None of the servants even glanced at him, treating him as though he was invisible. The entire Lord Yang residence was filled with gaiety. It was buzzing with noise and excitement. Many people were scurrying around the residence, preparing for the banquet. Guests kept coming, and they greeted the people they knew. However, they took a different path than them. Wang Teng and his master were walking in a quiet and peaceful corridor. Oh my God, this is the VIP passage. The VIP passage was a quiet shortcut. Wang Teng and his master arrived at the banquet venue quickly. Numerous lanterns were hung high around the building, showering light on the flowers and plants around them. The image was gorgeous, just like a dream. The moon was bright, and the stars were few. It was a beautiful night. The banquet was magnificent. The host seat was directly in front, and a tall, mighty middle-aged man was sitting there. There were 2 rows of guest seats beside him. The chairs went for a distance. Many guests were already sitting there, chatting happily. There were many low platforms in the area. Musicians played their instruments on the platforms, while ladies wearing short dresses danced below. The pleasant music floated through the entire venue. President of the Rune Society has arrived. After the servant in charge of announcing the arrival of the guests suddenly shouted, an elder and a young man walked in. The eyes of the middle-aged man sitting at the top lit up. He got up and walked down his seat to welcome Gorlin. The guests that had arrived turned their heads to take a look. Ha ha ha, President Gorlin, long time no see. Lord Yang's laughter was bright and clear. Congratulations on regaining your health. It has been a while, but you're still as handsome and energetic as ever. Gorlin smiled and cupped his fists. Ha ha ha, come, take your seat. Lord Yang seemed to be in a good mood. He pulled Gorlin and walked forward, giving him the first seat to his left. It went without thinking that the seats closer to Lord Yang would be given to people with the highest position. Gorlin didn't reject him either. He smiled and sat down. The other people took it as a matter of course too. Chapter 305, Lord Yang's intention. Wang Teng had already taken his seat. There were many small tables located behind the 2 rows of guest seats. These were prepared for the younger generations. Wang Teng sat down beside the table behind Gorlin. He glanced at Lord Yang secretly. The man was handsome and stern, and he naturally gave off a domineering aura. He could also see similarities in his and Li Rongxu's appearances. At this moment, a few guests cupped their fists and greeted Gorlin from afar. The young people behind these guests couldn't help but look at Wang Teng. They were extremely curious about the identity of this young man who came with Gorlin. President Gorlin, who is the young man behind you? Lord Yang asked. I just took him in as a disciple recently. His name is Wang Teng, Gorlin said. Lord Yang was an easygoing person, not at all imposing like his image suggested. He smiled and said, this young man must have a great gift in order for you to take him in as your disciple. You're too polite. He only has some small capability. It's not worth mentioning, Gorlin replied humbly. As they spoke, more guests started arriving. The president of the Alchemist Society has arrived. The Su family has arrived. The Lord of the City has arrived. The Wan family has arrived. These were all boss-level figures in Yang City. After they came in, they congratulated Lord Yang. Lord Yang, congratulations. You have successfully cured your poison. The family head of the Su family bowed and said. You're too polite. Please take a seat, Lord Yang smiled and replied. Su Lingyun greets Lord Yang. Su Lingxian greets Lord Yang. The two beautiful ladies behind the family head greeted Lord Yang simultaneously. Your daughters are becoming more and more impressive, Lord Yang praised their manners. Congratulations on your recovery. The family head of the WN family hurriedly cupped his fists and walked forward. He didn't want to lose out. Mr. WN, please take a seat, Lord Yang smiled and replied. WAN Feifeng greets Lord Yang. A young lady around 20 years old saluted Lord Yang. Miss WN is here too. You have gotten more beautiful over the years. I wonder which guy will have the good fortune of marrying you in the future. Lord Yang laughed out loud. Then, he asked curiously, oh right, where are your sons? Those two brats kept creating trouble outside. They got injured by someone a few days ago and are still recuperating, Mr. WAN replied. The guests and the host exchanged conventional greetings before taking their seats. Su Lingxian saw Gorlin and Wang Teng at one glance. She informed Mr. Su and ran towards them. Master, senior brother, have a seat, Gorlin said with a smile. Su Lingxian winked at Wang Teng before sitting down beside him. Su Lingyun frowned uncontrollably when she saw this scene. A trace of envy appeared on her beautiful face. WAN Feifeng glanced at Wang Teng secretly too. She knew that he was the one who had injured WN Feiyu and WN Feipeng. A cold glint flashed past her eyes. As time passed, more people arrived. Wang Teng saw Xu Hongye and Tan Shosho. The two ladies nodded at Su Lingxian and Wang Teng before heading to their seats. President of the Yang City Academy has arrived. Along with the announcement, a muscular elder walked in. He had a white beard and white hair, and he was accompanied by a young man and a young lady. Principal Yang is here. Lord Yang stood up to welcome him. The principal of Yang City Academy enjoyed the same treatment as Gorlin. There were the only two guests whom Lord Yang got up to welcome personally. Wang Teng was astounded. From his point of view, the principal of the Yang City Academy must have a high status, maybe even higher than Gorlin. Yet, Lord Yang treated them equally. Congratulations on your recovery, Principal Yang said. You're too polite. Lord Yang held his right hand and guided him to the first seat on his right. It was directly opposite Gorlin. Dongfang Yu greets Lord Yang. Yi Kai-cheng greets Lord Yang. The two youths behind Principal Yang greeted Lord Yang. You are both young talents who have gained glory for our city. Lord Yang patted their shoulders and said with relief. You're flattering us. This is what we should do, the two young people replied. Everyone looked at the two youngsters with admiration in their eyes. It was rare to see talents as outstanding as them. So they are the favorite disciples of Principal Yang. As expected, their aura is exceptional. Dongfang Yu is number 10 on the gifted ranking. I heard that her ability has improved again. She might be able to move up a rank or two. Yi Kai-cheng is not bad either. Hes ranked number 21. Principal Yang is indeed Principal Yang. How is he able to groom these two talented students? The guests around them complimented Principal Yang for his keen eyesight and his teaching skills. They were a little envious as they looked at Dongfang Yu and Yi Kai-cheng, who were exuding the aura of a mighty martial warrior. If their disciples had this achievement, it would be a blessing to their families. Unfortunately, still, these two young talents came from ordinary backgrounds. Making connections through marriage was a good way to draw them to their side. The eyes of the family heads started glistening at the thought. Although everyone had this intention, on the surface, they maintained an indifferent smile. All the guests finally arrived. Lord Yang stood up and raised his wine glass. I invited everyone today to thank you for taking care of Yang City when I was injured. Let me offer this toast to all of you. He finished the wine in one gulp. You're too polite. Everyone stood up and raised their cups. They finished the wine in their glasses. Sit, please sit. Lord Yang pressed his hand down. He continued, I have another matter to discuss. Everyone knows that I accidentally got poisoned when I killed a poison element star beast a few months ago. Fortunately, my daughter ran all over the empire and finally managed to help me find the antidote. Without her, I might have died. Hence, I must thank my daughter. After he finished speaking, an elegant figure slowly walked in under the guidance of a servant. "Rongxue, you have helped me greatly. I must reward you," Lord Yang said. Li Rongxue bowed to Lord Yang and said gently, "The best reward is your health." "Ha ha ha, as expected of my good daughter." Lord Yang laughed and continued, "However, I still have to reward you. I'll definitely find a good husband for you in the future. If you lay your eyes on any young talents here, I will kidnap them if I have to." The guests were all speechless. Li Rongxue blushed in embarrassment. She didn't expect her father to say this at this moment. On the other hand, the young men at the scene were all invigorated. Their eyes lit up, and they straightened their postures. They raised their chins and puffed up their chests, wishing to show Li Rongxue their best sides. If Li Rongxue liked them, they would become Lord Yang's son-in-law. One word from Lord Yang, and their future would be prosperous. Mind you, Lord Yang was the power wielder in Yang City, and he had imperial blood in him. Marrying Li Rongxue would allow them to climb the highest ladder in one step. This was why Yarrow Yu had taken that risk in the forest. Many people had the same thought. At this moment, a sly look appeared in Yi Kaicheng's eyes. No one knew what he was thinking as he sat behind Principal Yang. Chapter 306, Something is Wrong. The banquet started. As people offered a toast to one another, laughter and conversations lit up the atmosphere. It was extremely lively. Wang Teng didn't know most of the guests here, so he sat on his seat and savored the delicious food. Occasionally, he would take a sip of his wine. It was carefree and peaceful. Beautiful music sounded beside his ear, making the current scene all the more joyous. While the musicians played their instruments, attribute bubbles popped out of their fingertips. Music skill *10 music skill *8 There are attributes for music skills. Wang Ting picked them up with interest. Musician, 36-100, beginner stage, a new secondary job was added to the RAW. Why did I pick them up? I won't play music. Wang Ting was speechless. He only picked it up out of curiosity. He didn't expect a new secondary job to appear. Never mind, I have already picked it. Many musicians were playing at the banquet. Since they could be invited by the Lord Yang residents, they must be highly skilled in their field. Many attribute bubbles floated around them. Wang Teng decided to pick the other bubbles since the secondary job had already appeared. Musician, 535-1000, advanced stage. As compared to rune and the other skills, music was very easy to upgrade. Within a few moments, he had become an advanced stage musician. Su Lingxian was eating happily at the side. She was the epitome of a foodie. She remained oblivious of the outside world. All she did was eat. When she saw Wang Ting drinking wine, she got a little tempted. She wanted to pour a cup for herself. The instant she stretched her hand towards the wine bottle, it was slapped away. Slap. Along with a crisp sound, Su Lingxian retracted her hand quickly. The back of her hand had turned red. She gasped in pain. "Why did you hit me?" Su Lingxian asked angrily. "You're just a child. Why are you drinking wine?" Wang Teng replied. "Why can't I drink? You're only a few years older than me, but you can drink it." Su Lingxian felt a little guilty for some reason. However, she was unwilling to back down. "First, I'm your senior brother. As the saying goes, the elder brother is like a father. A senior brother is a brother too. That means that I can be considered your father. Thus, I have to educate you. A few years older is still older. If you're unconvinced, you can ask your father why he didn't give birth to you a few years earlier," Wang Ting said in a composed manner. Su Lingxian was confused by his elder brother is like a father argument. Her gaze turned blurry, and she took a long time to regain her senses. The next moment, she became furious. "Phut, what evil intentions do you have? You want to be my father? Oh, this idiot. Cough, I'm just explaining the cause and effect." "I don't want to be your father," Wang Ting coughed awkwardly and replied. Su Lingxian still wanted to rebuke him. "Stop." Wang Ting interrupted her quickly. He said, "Eat your food. If you don't finish it soon, other people will eat it." Su Lingxian shuddered. She stopped arguing with Wang Ting and started stuffing her mouth with the various dishes. As she ate, She complained, "It's your fault. Why do you want to be my father? You are a bad person. Can you stop bringing this up?" Wang Teng felt helpless. He had only said it once, but Su Lingxian mentioned it again and again. It was as if she was afraid other people wouldn't know it. Couldn't she see how many people were looking in their direction? Their gazes went back and forth between him and Su Lingxian, their expressions strange. Many guests present were boss-level characters with high cultivations. Their hearing was exceptional, so the conversation between them had landed in their ears even though they weren't speaking loudly. Principal Yang, who was opposite them, laughed and said, "Gorlin, your two disciples are very interesting." Although Gorlin felt frustrated, he still said, "My disciples are naive and pure." HMPH. Principal Yang scoffed. Wang Teng noticed that they didn't seem to have a good relationship. He wondered if his master had some grudges against Principal Yang. Li Rongxue was sitting beside Lord Yang. A gloomy expression flashed across her face. "Do you know the new disciple of President Gorlin?" The changes on Li Rongxue's face couldn't escape Lord Yang's eyes. He noticed it immediately and asked her in a soft voice. "Yes." Li Rongxue nodded, not hiding the facts from her father. Using voice transmission, she told him everything that had happened when she was killing the coxcomb jade scale python. Lord Yang frowned when he heard this. The Yarrow family is getting more and more out of hand. His gaze landed on a certain seat. The Yarrow family had a high status in Yang City, so they were naturally invited. He used voice transmission when he said the last sentence. "I think that the Yarrow family is disloyal to us. If not, they wouldn't have done this," Li Rongxue replied using voice transmission. "I don't care if they are disloyal. Since they dared to stoop so low, I'll not let go of them easily. I'll send someone to investigate the incident. If they're really planning a revolt, it's better to have evidence on our hands," Lord Yang said. Li Rongxue nodded. She hesitated for a moment before telling her father how she schemed Wang Ting to let him help her. Sigh. Li Rongxue shook his head and tapped Li Rongxue's forehead with his finger. Then, he looked at Wang Ting and called him out, "Junior Wang Ting." "Lord Yang." Wang Ting stopped in his motions. Why did Lord Yang call him? He looked up in surprise. "I've heard of what happened between you two. Rongxue told me just now. She was in the wrong this time. Let me apologize in her place. This toast is for you." Lord Yang finished the wine in his glass. He was very straightforward. Everyone was dumbstruck when they heard this. Lord Yang was apologizing to Wang Ting. They didn't know what happened, so they were puzzled. But, as a lord, Lord Yang actually apologized to Wang Ting personally. Also, based on what he said, he was apologizing on behalf of the princess. Something had happened between Wang Teng and Princess Li. They seemed to know each other. "You're too polite. It's just a little misunderstanding." Wang Teng got up and bowed back. Sit down. Everything will be fine once the misunderstanding is cleared." Lord Yang laughed. He raised his cup again and said, "However, I still have to have a toast with you. You should know the reason. There's no need to say it out loud." He downed another glass of wine. His magnanimity was admirable. The guests felt extremely uncomfortable when they heard Wang Ting and Lord Yang speaking in riddles. However, since Lord Yang didn't say it, they couldn't ask. "Brother Wang, I was at fault. I hope that you won't take it to heart and we will still be friends," Li Rongxue said as she got up and raised her cup. "Don't mind it," Wang Ting said with a bitter smile. Lord Yang and the princess were willing to put down their status and had apologized to him in front of so many people. This was a display of their sincerity. If he hoarded onto it, he would seem narrow-minded. At this moment, the other young men were looking at Wang Ting with hostility. Something was wrong. Something was going on between Wang Ting and the princess. From their expressions, they didn't look like enemies. Instead, many things seemed to have happened between them. They looked like frenemies. Everyone felt jealous. Su Lingxian nudged Wang Ting. "Hey, how do you know her?" "You want to know?" Wang Ting glanced at her sideways. "Yes." Su Lingxian nodded her head violently. She was extremely curious. "I won't tell you." Wang Ting sniggered. Su Ling Xian. Chapter 307. Hes the culprit. Two young ladies sitting at the end of the guests' rows were astonished. They looked at each other in disbelief. Why is it him? One of the young ladies said with her mouth agape. The other young lady sighed, feeling downcast. Upon remembering the misunderstandings towards him, it now felt like a joke. The Lord recognized him and President Gorlin took him in as his disciple. Why would he like her? The two young ladies were Meng Qiao and Fei Qingxin. Wang Teng had met them on the Force floating airship to Yang City. Do you know Wang Teng? A young man beside them asked. Brother, we met him on our journey here, Fei Qingxin said. Brother Fei, why? You don't know what happened back then. We didn't just meet him. Meng Qiao quickly told him the story. She spoke confidently and described Wang Ting as an unsightly person. I didn't know that he was that kind of person. The princess and Lord Yang must have been fooled by him, Fei Hui said with a glint in his eyes. Brother, don't listen to Meng Qiao's nonsense. What she said isn't true. She's biased against him, Fei Qingxin said hurriedly. Qingxin, I believe in Meng Qiao. She has stopped so many admirers from chasing you over the years. You'll only feel at ease with her around. Fei Hui didn't listen to his sister at all. He continued, you're too naive and believe others too easily. Remember, it's hard to understand the heart of a person. Some people are scheming. They will only reveal their true faces after they have achieved their goal. However, it will be too late at that time. Blunt are those concerned. Look at how enthusiastic he was towards you when we were on the Force floating airship. However, in a blink of an eye, Hes hooking the princess in his net. He just wants to play around, Meng Qiao said. No, I can't let the princess and Lord Yang get tricked by him. Fei Hui wanted to get up. Fei Qingxin was moved by their back and forth chatter. When she saw her brother standing up, she pulled him anxiously and said, Brother, have you forgotten that Hes President Gorlin's disciple? You might offend President Gorlin if you speak rashly. Fei Hui regained his composure at once. He felt a little awkward, but he didn't dare to stand up again. President Gorlin might have been fooled by him too. If we can expose him and let President Gorlin see Wang Ting's true face, he won't be angry, Meng Qiao said. It's not so simple. You won't be able to expose him with a few words. At that time, you will be in a difficult position. President Gorlin and Lord Yang might think that you're creating trouble out of nothing and will punish you in return, Fei Qingxin replied. Although they were unwilling to give up, they let go of the idea after listening to Fei Qingxin's explanation. If they provoked President Gorlin and Lord Yang at the same time, they might get kicked out of their family. There was a chance that they wouldn't be able to stay in Yang City anymore. Fei Qingxin heaved a sigh of relief. She finally made them give up their thoughts. However, she didn't know why she was helping Wang Teng. He might not even remember her. Fei Qingxin smiled bitterly. At this moment, a person sitting in the middle of the guests' seats stood up suddenly. Lord Yang, I'd like to ask you for a favor. The person bowed to Lord Yang with a sorrowful expression. Lord Yang kept his smile and looked at the person. Mr. Yao, what favor do you need from me? Unfortunately, both my sons were killed, and the culprit is here at this moment, Yarrow Hongsho said coldly. Everyone was thunderstruck. Everyone in Yang City knew that Mr. Yarrow's youngest son was killed by martial warriors from Earth. Yet, he was saying that the murderer was among them. Was there an Earthling hidden between them? Also, he said that both his sons were killed. There were different expressions on everyone's faces. Some felt grievous, while others felt elated at his plight. Wang Teng's eyes glistened. A cold glint flashed past the depth of his eyes as he sat in his seat. This crazy dog. Oh, who is the culprit? Lord Yang remained indifferent. He knew that Li Rongxue had killed Yarrow Yu. Was the Yarrow family going to risk their lives by bringing this matter up now? As for his youngest son being killed, he had heard of it too. Was there a link between these two cases? Li Rongxue's expression froze for a second, and she glanced at Wang Teng instinctively. When she noticed his indifference, she started to calm down. Yarrow Hongsho looked around him as his gaze finally landed on Wang Teng. It's him. He pointed at Wang Teng. Everyone turned to look at him instantaneously. Wang Teng remained composed. He even smiled. He killed Mr. Yarrow's sons? Meng Qiao and Fei Qingxin were shocked. I heard that Mr. Yarrow's youngest son was killed by a martial warrior from Earth. How can it be him? Fei Qingxin couldn't believe it. Have you forgotten that he came from Yong City? That is Earth's territory, Meng Qiao said. This fellow is indeed a bad person. He's dead. Mr. Yarrow won't let go of him, Fei Hui said excitedly. Mr. Yarrow, watch what you say. Gorlin stood up and looked at Yarrow Hongsho. His voice was calm. Mr. Yarrow, you need to have evidence if you want to lay such a huge claim, Lord Yang said. We will know after he confronts me, Yarrow Hongsho said, a crazed look appearing in his eyes. Mr. Yarrow, you want to confront me? Wang Teng stood up. I've investigated you. You came from Yong City, right? Yarrow Hongsho said. Many people come from Yong City. This doesn't mean anything, Li Rongxue spoke up. Hatred boiled in Yarrow Hongshu's heart when he saw Li Rongxue. He knew what Yarrow Yu had done, so he also knew that his son's death must be related to her. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to Li Rongxue. He had to suppress his hatred. He took out a drawing and said, when my son was killed, I asked someone to draw the appearance of the martial warriors from Earth. Take a look, and you will know. He opened the drawing with a slap. The Tiger Warrior team was drawn on the scroll, and Wang Teng's face was among them. Wang Teng came from Earth. Everyone looked at Wang Teng's drawing and compared it with the real person. They were dumbfounded. What do you have to say now? Yarrow Hongsho said. My disciple is indeed from Earth. However, our Xingwu continent is not at war with Earth. That's why I took him as my disciple. On the other hand, Mr. Yarrow, I heard that you killed many people before confirming who killed your youngest son. Are you sure that my disciple is the real culprit? Gorlin said slowly. I have a witness. Yarrow Hongsho gave a crazy smile. He cupped his fists at Lord Yang and said, Lord Yang, please allow me to bring the person in. Wang Teng squinted. Somehow, he had a bad feeling. Approved. Lord Yang finally nodded after glancing at Gorlin and Wang Teng. Chapter 308. You deserve to die. Not long after, a person covered in blood and filth was carried into the banquet. He was placed between the two rows of guests. This blood-stained person was severely injured, and his arms and legs were twisted at weird angles. He must have suffered inhuman torture. Many people frowned involuntarily when they saw the person's miserable condition. However, Wang Teng trembled when he saw this person. His expression turned ugly. Although his face was covered with blood, Wang Teng recognized him at first glance. Lin Zhon. The leader of the Tiger Warrior team, Lin Zhon. Wang Teng never expected to see him here. What do you think? Wang Teng, do you admit to your crimes? Yarrow Hongsho smiled as he stared at Wang Teng. You deserve to die. A furious glare shot out of Wang Teng's eyes. His gaze was fixed on the man. No, you deserve to die. Yarrow Hongshu's expression turned cold as killing intent seeped out of his body. You should have died when you killed my sons. They deserved to die in the first place. Since they wanted to kill me, they should be prepared to get killed, Wang Teng replied. He really killed them. It was a rude shock for everyone. Yarrow Yu was very strong. He has always been called a talent. How did Wang Teng kill him? Meng Qiao was astounded. Wang Teng killed Mr. Yarrow's sons. This grudge is enormous. Things won't end easily today, Fei Hui said with a smile. How is this possible? Fei Qingxin felt worried and anxious. This fellow looks harmless, but he killed Mr. Yarrow's sons. It seems like he isn't as simple as he looks. Xu Hongye and Tan Shosho had a good impression of Wang Teng. However, they didn't know that he also had a ruthless side to him. Wan Feifeng smiled. It looks like I don't have to do anything. As Principal Yang's favorite disciples, Dongfang Yu and Yi Kai Cheng naturally took notice of Wang Teng. They were eager to see how he would escape this crisis. Principal Yang sized up Gorlin's disciple with interest. His smile was full of schadenfreude. He seemed delighted to see Gorlin in trouble. On the other hand, Gorlin remained calm. With his position and ability, he had no difficulty protecting Wang Teng. However, he didn't hope that his disciple would kill innocent people. Lord, the culprit has admitted it himself. Please help me kill this person and take revenge for my sons. Yarrow Hongsho gave Lord Yang a deep bow. Everyone shifted their gaze to Lord Yang. They didn't know how he would settle this matter. As Gorlin's disciple, Wang Teng couldn't be punished easily. However, Yarrow Hongsho had already reported his crimes to Lord Yang, so he must give a verdict. He didn't kill Yarrow Yu. I did. Li Rongxue suddenly opened her mouth at this moment. Wang Ting turned his head and looked at her in surprise. Before this, he was still angry at Li Rongxue for scheming against him. But, now, right at this moment, all his unhappiness dispersed when she stood up for him. Maybe Li Rongxue had lost her cool because she was too worried about Lord Yang's poison. After all, he was at the brink of death. Everyone turned to look at Li Rongxue in bewilderment. Princess, do you know what you're saying? Yarrow Hongsho was stunned. He didn't expect Li Rongxue to admit it directly. Yarrow Yu deserved to die. Li Rongxue revealed what Yarrow Yu had planned to do to her openly. Everyone listened to the story with rapt attention. The twists today were too unexpected. Princess, you can't frame my son even if you have a noble status, Yarrow Hongsho bawled. His eyes were bloodshot. You know what I'm saying. You just don't want to remove the fig leaf. But I have to tell the truth. I can't bear to let Wang Ting take the blame after he saved me, Li Rongxue replied. Yarrow Hongsho lowered his head, his hands shivering. A dead silence blanketed the venue. Everyone was looking at him. The princess admitted that she killed Yarrow Yu. What would Yarrow Hongsho do? Some family heads who were enemies of the Yarrow family enjoyed his suffering. Wang Ting disregarded Yarrow Hongsho's emotions. He strode towards Lin Zhon and took out a healing pill for him to swallow. Fortunately, Yarrow Hongsho had spared his life because he wanted him as his witness. What happened to the other members of the Tiger Warrior team? Did they get caught by Yarrow Hongsho? Did they suffer his inhumane torture? Or were they killed? Suddenly, Yarrow Hongsho raised his head. He gritted his teeth and said, My son Yarrow Yu was disrespectful towards Princess Li, so he deserves to die. However, my youngest son was killed by Wang Ting. A life for a life. He must die. Your youngest son wanted to kill me. Was I supposed to let him do it? Wang Ting turned his head and replied with a cold smile. That's your side of the story, Yarrow Hongsho said indignantly. Isn't your statement one-sided too? Wang Ting mocked. Lord, please kill this person. Yarrow Hongsho turned and bowed to Lord Yang again. We haven't reached the final verdict. I can't kill him yet, Lord Yang replied calmly. Lord, He's from Earth. He's not one of us. He's disloyal. Yarrow Hongsho screamed hoarsely. Xingwu continent has formed an alliance with Earth. What's more, he's a human, like us. How is he not one of us? Lord Yang asked in return. Ha ha ha. Yarrow Hongsho laughed in anger. He slowly straightened his body, and his expression turned hideous. Since you are all shielding him, I'll just have to do it myself. When he said this, he had already disappeared from his position. Little bitch, die. Yarrow Hongsho was only less than 20 meters away from Wang Ting. He was a 6-star soldier-level martial warrior, so he was able to travel through space at the speed of sound. In a split second, he appeared in front of Wang Ting. He turned his hand into a claw and lunged at Wang Ting's throat. Wang Ting squinted, his pupils shrinking to as thin as needles. 6-star soldier level. From the 4-star soldier level onwards, every level was an insurmountable barrier. The difference between each level was vast. But Wang Ting wasn't an ordinary person. His thick and abundant force surged out of his body and flowed into his arm. He punched out viciously. Boom. The air exploded. It couldn't withstand the overwhelming might of the punch. Yarrow Hongsho's expression changed. He didn't expect Wang Ting's punch to be this formidable. He had no choice. He changed his claw into a palm and collided with Wang Ting's punch. Bang! When the palm and the fist smashed into each other, force erupted like a volcano. Airwaves swept through the entire banquet. Both parties took a few steps back uncontrollably. Blood was dripping down the corner of Wang Ting's lips. Everyone was flabbergasted by this exchange. They were mind-blown when Wang Ting managed to receive Yarrow Hongsha's attack. Was this truly a young man? He was on par with a renowned martial warrior who had been famous for a long time. Yarrow Hongsha's expression turned sinister when his attack failed. At the same time, he was bewildered. He charged at Wang Ting once again. "How dare you! How dare you!" Two angry roars rang out simultaneously. One came from Lord Yang, while the other came from Gorlin. Two powerful auras exploded. They slammed heavily onto Yarrow Hongsha's body. Splurt. Yarrow Hongsha's body froze for a second when he got hit by the powerful blow. Then, he vomited a mouth of blood and fell backward on the ground. A 6-star soldier-level martial warrior couldn't even withstand the aura of these two prominent figures. Chapter 309, The Existence You Mustn't See Ha Ha Ha. Although Yarrow Hongsha's mouth was filled with blood, he was laughing maniacally. His expression was hideous and savage. He seemed to have gone mad. "You forced me. You forced me to do this." His eyes were bloodshot and filled with red capillaries. A black ball appeared in his hand out of nowhere. "This is..." Lord Yang and Gorlin were stupefied when they looked at the ball in his hand. A split second later, they regained their senses, and their expressions changed entirely. They didn't know what it was, but they could feel a forbidding dark aura from it. The aura was extremely thick. There seemed to be space elements contained in the ball. Die. Yarrow Hongsha had gone mad. He raised the black ball as his body rose into the air. Suddenly, he soared into the sky. "Stop him." Lord Yang's expression changed again. He leaped and flew up. Unfortunately, it was too late. Boom. It only took a blink of an eye before a massive explosion shook the entire night sky. Frightening airwaves rained down. Even with Lord Yang's superior ability, he was stuck in mid-air. "This is bad." Gorlin looked at the pitch-black sky sternly. He had sensed something. The other guests had the same feeling. Their expressions turned ugly. "Yarrow Hongsha, how dare he? He's crazy. He should die. The Yarrow family should be annihilated." Anger raged in everyone's heart. They hated Yarrow Hongsha to the core. Wang Ting was dumbstruck. He looked up at the sky with his spiritual sight and saw a terrifying image. Space was distorting, collapsing, and shattering into fragments. The fragments then turned into dust and disappeared. Gradually, an endless whirlpool was coming into being. Attribute bubbles fell from the sky one by one. Space *10 space *13 space *6. All he could see were space attributes. There were close to 100 space bubbles, and each of their values was high. None of them was smaller than 1. Mind you, when Wang Ting passed through the dimensional rift in the past, all the space bubbles he collected had values of less than 1. The highest was 2 points. He should be happy to see so many space attributes, but his heart was palpitating violently for some reason. An unprecedented danger was befalling them. But he still collected what he should. He picked them up. Space, 336 1000. His space attribute shot up to 336 points immediately. Wang Ting felt that his space talent seemed to have been awakened. He was more sensitive to space now. He even felt that he could teleport through short distances. How intimidating. He raised his head. Without his spiritual sight, he could still see the dimensional rift taking shape gradually. Although the dimensional rift was only a meter wide, it was slowly and stably expanding. "Master, it's a dimensional rift," Wang Ting said. "Yes." Gorlin nodded sternly. "Where does this tunnel connect to?" Wang Ting asked. "It should be the Darkland," Gorlin replied. Lord Yang flew down from the sky. His tone was grave as he gave his order without wasting any time. "Sound the battle drums. Inform the entire city to prepare for war." "Yes." The guests below had also recognized the severity of the situation, so they replied to him immediately. "Rongxue, take my token. Find some men and bring the old, young, and women in the city to the emergency shelter for refuge." With a wave of Lord Yang's hand, a token flew towards Li Rongxue. Yes. Li Rongxue took the token and rushed off. Send people to the cities around us to ask for reinforcement. More and more orders shot out of Lord Yang's mouth. His subordinates below took the orders and left in a hurry. The Crimson Tiger Troop and the Black Sparrow Troop are the nearest to us on Earth. I'll send someone to seek reinforcements from them, the lord of the city, Shu Yi, said. Be quick. Otherwise, our Yang city might get wiped out soon, Lord Yang replied. Yes. Shu Yi soared into the sky and left. Principal Yang, at this critical moment, I need the help of the academy. Lord Yang turned and spoke to Principal Yang. Of course. Principal Yang stood up abruptly. He was tall and muscular. His white beard flew in the wind as he turned and left with Dongfang Yu and Yi Kai-cheng. President Gorlin. Lord Yang looked at Gorlin. Don't worry, all members of the Rune Society will be at your disposal, Gorlin said. I'm worried that the protective shield array of the Yang city will not last for long. I hope that you can lead your rune masters and set up a few more layers of protection. This will buy some time for Yang city, Lord Yang said solemnly. I'll see to it immediately. Gorlin activated his spiritual power and turned into a ray of light. Lord, I'll be leaving too. Wang Teng cupped his fists at Lord Yang and followed Gorlin. Within a few breaths, all the guests were gone. Sigh. Lord Yang floated in midair and looked at the dimensional rift that was slowly taking form. He sighed. I hope that Yang city will pull through this ordeal. Bang! 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 Most of the civilians were sleeping soundly at this late into the night. Suddenly, thunderous drum beats rang out, startling them awake from their dreams. It echoed through the entire city. It rang 9 times. Everyone was wide awake. After a second of silence, the entire Yang city was engulfed in panic. The angry shouts of the adults and the cries of babies converged and turned into an uproar. There was an outburst of commotion. What's happening? What's going on? Mom, I'm scared. Squads of soldiers poured into the city to maintain order and evacuate the civilians. At the same time, figures started darting out of the Rune Society. They charged to all corners of the city and started carving defense arrays. Wang Ting stood behind Gorlin. Wang Ting, you're not from Yang City. You still have time to escape. I've never seen such a huge crisis before. Let me gain some experience today. Wang Ting sniggered. This isn't child's play, Gorlin said. What happened tonight is partly my fault. If I leave now, I won't be able to sleep peacefully in the future. Wang Ting smiled and replied. No, Yarrow Hongsho was already bewitched. He would have done this sooner or later even if you were not around. Gorlin shook his head. If I can't handle it, I'll be the first to run away. Master, don't blame me if that happens, Wang Ting said. Ha ha ha, remember to bring your junior sister with you. Gorlin laughed. Boom. Accompanied by a sudden loud explosion from the sky, silver rays blossomed like a flower. Thick bolts of lightning struck from the depth of the dimensional rift. What's happening? The people in the city looked up at the sky. Beneath the shimmering silver glow, the dimensional rift had already expanded more than 10 meters in diameter. Look, what is that? A startled shout rose from the crowd. Someone had noticed something. A ray of red light had appeared behind the dimensional rift. Wang Ting looked up too, and his heart shuddered at the sight. This was a colossal eyeball. The red light was the glow of the pupil. The huge pupil peeped through the dimensional rift, watching Yang City from the unknown land at the other end. A strong sense of forbidding enveloped the entire city. What kind of gaze was this? Chaos, distorted, menace, malicious, evil, berserk. All the emotions formed an oppressive and frightening mental pressure on anyone looking at it. It was an existence you mustn't see. Chapter 310, 8 Arms Devil General. The enormous red eye traveled through 2 worlds as it stared at the paradise below. Don't look at it. Someone hollered. However, it was too late. Once a normal person peered into the eye, an illusion overcame their senses. They heard a sound they couldn't comprehend, a sound they shouldn't hear. Their rationality was reduced to pieces, and an unknown fear shot into their hearts. They turned into maniacs and started running around aimlessly. Miserable screams filled the surroundings. This scene made everyone's blood turn cold. Those that heard the reminder lowered their heads in time and stopped looking at the red eye. Wang Teng felt his mind getting invaded too. A powerful and brutal pressure penetrated his consciousness. Somewhere deep in his mind, a profound spiritual power entrenched like a dragon gushed out. Emperor Realm spiritual power. It crushed the savage mental pressure and forced it out of his mind. The confusion in his eyes disappeared instantly, and he regained his senses. The eye was probably too far away, so the spiritual power that invaded Wang Ting's consciousness was greatly crippled by the doors of the different worlds. If not, with Wang Ting's ability, he wouldn't be able to drive out that metal pressure. "Are you all right?" Gorlin asked worriedly. "I'm fine." Wang Ting shook his head. He still had lingering fears. Gorlin looked at him and saw that he wasn't affected. "It looks like I underestimated you." "Master, what's that?" Wang Ting asked. "It should be a devil god," Gorlin said grimly. "Devil god? God?" Wang Ting was appalled. "Will this formidable presence travel through the worlds?" "No. The dimensional rift will take its shape soon. Based on the terrifying power of the devil god, a dimensional rift this size isn't strong enough to hold its body." However, Gorlin paused for a moment. Wang Ting had just managed to sigh in relief when his heart jumped to his throat again. "Devil generals may come down," Gorlin finished his sentence. "Devil generals?" Wang Ting was puzzled. "Devil generals are like our general stage martial warriors. However, they are dark apparitions, so it's extremely difficult to deal with them," Gorlin replied. At this moment, the immense mental pressure on his mind disappeared. Wang Ting looked up. He suddenly saw a few large attribute bubbles floating down slowly from the sky. Emperor Realm Spirit *53 Emperor Realm Spirit *36 Emperor Realm Spirit *42 Emperor Realm Spirit attribute. Wang Ting was shocked and was left speechless in wonder. The spirit dissipated by the eye was already in the Emperor Realm state. Even more, the value was so high. Spirit, Emperor Realm, 135-1000, Wang Ting took a deep breath. This was a huge gain. But it wasn't the time to think about all these. After the enormous eye disappeared, numerous black shadows started appearing from the depth of the dimensional rift. Within a few seconds, the shadows filled up the sky above them. They gave off an intense dark aura as they traveled through the different worlds to reach their city. Roar! Bloodthirsty howls rang out continuously. The black shadows plunged down from the sky. Defense array, activated. A shout rang out. Amid a dazzling light, multiple circular light bubbles enveloped the city. It looked like a huge eggshell. Bang, bang, bang. The black shadows shot down from the sky and crashed into the defense arrays. Loud thuds shook the eardrums of the people inside the array. More and more black shadows were falling from the sky. They congregated outside the walls of Yang City and launched a fierce attack. Wang Ting followed Gorlin to the top of the city wall. A large number of troops were gathered here. They aimed the force cannons and fired at the dark apparitions swarming towards them in large numbers. There were all types of dark apparitions, including vampires with wings on their backs, huge and tall giant devils, and low-class dark apparitions with no consciousness. Boom, boom, boom. They collided into the protective shield viciously, disregarding the harm it caused to them. Muffled booms echoed in the air. The defense array was weakening continuously. The attacks of the force cannons never stopped. The dark apparitions that got hit exploded and died. However, there were way too many of them. The damage caused by the force cannons was like the ripples on the surface of the lake. It wasn't of much help. Suddenly, a gigantic figure strode out of the dimensional rift. An eerie aura engulfed the city. The people standing on the city wall also sensed the powerful existence dawning on the city. They looked up simultaneously. The figure was at least 3 meters tall. It carried an enormous black weapon that looked like a blade and a sword on its back. All the muscles on its body were bulging. It gave off an impenetrable texture like granite. There were 8 thick arms growing on its back. It was petrifying. Its head was decorated with horns, and its face looked hideous. It instilled fear in people through a single glance. 8 Arms Devil General. Lord Yang and Gorlin called out in alarm when they saw this figure. 8 Arms Devil General. Wang Teng repeated the name. He felt that the name described the devil very well. He felt gloomy. It wasn't hard to tell that this presence above his head was extremely daunting. Its opponents were the bosses in the city. He didn't dare to fight it. A hint of impatience flashed past the dark-colored face of the 8 Arms Devil General when it saw that its subordinates were unable to break the defense of Yang City. It spurted one word at them. Useless. Wang Teng couldn't understand the word, though. From his point of view, the language spoken by the 8 Arms Devil General was highly foreign. It sounded sinister and rough. The 8 Arms Devil General took out the gigantic weapon behind its back and slashed it below him. A crescent black blade glow flew out immediately. Boom. Crack tilde crack tilde crack. Fissures started appearing on the defense array. Finally, with a loud crack, a huge hole was created. Dark apparitions charged towards the city wall through the hole. Let me deal with him. Lord Yang looked grim. He rose into the air and charged towards the 8 Arms Devil General. Count me in. Principal Yang stepped on the ground and shot out like an arrow leaving its bowstring. He dashed towards the 8 Arms Devil General. Be careful. Don't force yourself. Gorlin shook his head and reminded Wang Teng before turning into a rainbow and shooting into the sky. The top 3 formidable warriors of Yang City went to welcome the 8 Arms Devil General. A fierce fight ensued immediately. This was the battle between generals. The frightening impact of their conflict astounded the onlookers. Kill. Some dark apparition had climbed up the city walls by now. After loud yells, they started their massacre. This was the beginning of a horrifying and tragic war. It was bloody and chaotic. This is a disaster. Wang Teng looked at this scene and suddenly understood what the two worlds were defending against. Once the human race got defeated, both Earth and Xingwu continent would turn into debris. They would become a living hell. Roar. A black shadow pounced on Wang Teng from behind. It was a low-class dark apparition. It was savage and had no consciousness. It only knew how to kill. A battle sword appeared in Wang Teng's hand. His expression was cold as he turned around and chopped the dark apparition into 2. A line of fiery red sword glow slashed its body. On the other side, Dongfang Yu, Yi Kai Cheng, Wn Feifeng, and the other young talents were fighting with the enemies too. This was a critical moment, but the younger generation of warriors didn't back down. They charged to the front line courageously. Kill. Wang Teng's gaze was firm. He held his battle sword and turned into the god of death as he headed towards the area with the most dark apparitions. One sword, one head. Kill, kill, kill. If darkness dawns, I will clear a bloody path of hope. Chapter 311, Flaming Wings, Annihilating the Enemy in the Air. Yang City. The vast and prosperous city was plunged into a desperate situation. The tall and towering city walls were unable to defend against the countless dark apparitions outside. Ripples appeared continuously on the protective shield as a massive number of dark apparitions attacked it. Thin cracks had already appeared on some parts of the shield. Many rune masters were scattered across Yang City, maintaining the operation of the defense array. They would patch up the thin lines on the shield immediately. The Liu and Su families were rune elite families. They sent their elites to protect the defense arrays. Su Lingxian, Su Lingyun, and Liu Xinghui were standing on the city walls at this moment. As renowned talents, they were stronger than normal rune masters. They were another batch of fresh troops. However, a huge crack had formed at a certain part of the shield. This crack was impossible to repair in time. The dark apparitions used it as their passageway to charge into Yang City. This crack was cut by a single slash from the 8 Arms Devil General. Boom, boom, boom. Loud explosions occurred in the sky without stopping. The 4 boss-level figures turned into rays of glaring light as they collided and flew back repeatedly. Every collision caused the air around them to erupt. The airwaves from their battle formed waves and waves of circular force impacts, spreading out with them in the center. It was unnerving. Below them, Martial warriors from the different factions in Yang City were fighting at close quarters with the dark apparitions. The Yang City Academy, the various elite families, and the different troops and armies were all participating in the bitter struggle for their lives. The battle was tragic, and humans were collapsing every moment. The scary image of dark apparitions was deeply ingrained in people's hearts. They were difficult to handle and even harder to kill. They were a nightmare to human martial warriors. Fortunately, the human race had grasped the dark apparitions' weakness. Once they stabbed the hearts and chopped off their heads, they would die. The dark apparitions didn't gain any advantage once the humans focused on one point to attack. The most irritating thing was, the dark apparitions had one special trait: assimilation. The heavily injured human martial warriors were easily contaminated by dark force. Once their mentality was affected, they would turn into emotionless killing machines. Just like the low-level dark apparitions. As more and more human martial warriors and dark apparitions died, huge numbers of attribute bubbles floated on the battleground. Fire Force *3 Earth Force *4 Dark Force *3 Spirit *2 Water Force *5 Dark Force *8 While killing the dark apparitions, Wang Teng released his spiritual power and let it roam around the battlefield, collecting all the attribute bubbles. Fortunately, his spiritual power had reached the Emperor realm. If not, his spiritual power would be exhausted after using it for too long. It wouldn't be able to sustain the long hours of usage like now. Even the dark apparitions would drop spirit attributes. These helped him to replenish his spiritual power and prevented it from drying up. The dark apparitions had probably sensed his power, so 5 dark apparitions charged towards him simultaneously. "Be careful," someone reminded him from his side. It was Dongfang Yu from the Yang City Academy. "Go away." Wang Teng glared at the dark apparitions and slashed them with his sword. The fiery red flaming sword blade chopped the heads of the dark apparitions off directly. They were dead. Dongfang Yu was stunned. Even she would find it strenuous to handle the attacks of 5 dark apparitions at the same time. However, Wang Teng had killed them with a single strike. How powerful was this fellow? She suddenly remembered how he had exchanged a punch with the 6-star soldier-level Yarrow Hongsho in the banquet. She was astounded. Wang Ting turned to look at Dongfang Yu, who had reminded him just now. Suddenly, his gaze froze, and he shot out abruptly. He stabbed the heart of a dark apparition with his sword. This dark apparition had dashed toward Dongfang Yu from behind when she was in a daze. It wanted to kill her. Although the low-level dark apparitions didn't have a consciousness, they remained sharp and keen. They knew how to grab every opportunity and were extremely hard to handle. "Don't space out." Wang Teng retrieved his battle sword from the dark apparition's chest as he shouted at Dongfang Yu. Blood flowed down the sword. He turned around and charged headfirst into another cluster of dark apparitions. "I was reprimanded by that fellow." Dongfang Yu regained her senses and smiled bitterly. She was number 10 on the gifted ranking. She had reached the peak of the 4-star soldier level and had an extremely strong battle ability. She once even killed a 5-star soldier-level formidable warrior. She wasn't a pretty but useless young lady. After a second of inattentiveness, her gaze turned sharp, and she continued her massacre. Wang Teng didn't know how many attribute bubbles he had picked in this conflict. He only knew that he was getting stronger and stronger. There was a steady stream of force in his body, exciting him more and more as he fought. He seemed to have been possessed by the god of war and the god of death. Other people needed Dan medicine to replenish their force, but he didn't. Wherever he went, a huge cluster of dark apparitions would fall. The human martial warriors around him were struck dumb with bewilderment. But they were invigorated too. Why is he so strong? Yi Kai-cheng was the second most powerful student in the Yang City Academy, only behind Dongfang Yu. He wanted to compete with Wang Ting during the banquet, but when he saw this scene, he was left speechless. He felt bitter in his heart. They weren't on the same level. Suddenly, a figure flew down from the sky and headed straight for Wang Ting. This was a high-level dark apparition with a pair of wings made of flesh on its back. It held a long spear in its hand, wielding it as fast as lightning. An icy black glow was shimmering on the tip of the long spear. It was aimed at Wang Ting's head. Wang Ting turned serious. He waved his sword and used 30% of his 9th level sword presence to destroy the black glow. The vampire dark apparition quickly soared into the sky once its attack failed. It waved its wings and turned into a series of lingering shadows as it flashed around Wang Ting, looking for an opportunity to strike again. An eerie smile appeared at the edge of its lips, its gaze filled with contempt. It seemed elated to see Wang Ting so helpless. Suddenly, its eyes turned wide open. A pair of fiery red wings appeared behind Wang Ting's back. He turned into a scorching red ray of light as he flew towards the vampire dark apparition. 5-star soldier level. Yi Kai-cheng blurted out. He turned numb. Only the top 3 in the gifted ranking had reached the 5-star soldier level. Those youths were all more than 20 years old. Wang Ting was only 17, but he had already reached the 5-star soldier level. Oh my god, it was scary. The vampire dark apparition's eyes also widened in surprise. However, it was at 5-star soldier level too, so it immediately regained its composure. Its eyes turned scarlet red, and a sinister glow appeared in them. It shone straight into Wang Ting's eyes. This was one of the talents of the vampire race, Bewitch. You're looking for death. A cold smile appeared at the edge of Wang Ting's lips. His eyes turned into a similar shade of scarlet. He was extremely skilled in his Bewitch skill. With the help of his Emperor Realm spiritual power, Wang Ting welcomed the attack of this vampire. How is that possible? The vampire was flabbergasted when it saw the familiar glow in Wang Ting's eyes. It was in disbelief. The next instant, confusion appeared on its face. It froze in mid-air. A blade glow stabbed out and penetrated its heart. Chapter 312, The Killing Intent of a Nobody Towards a Giant That Could Hold the Sky. A 5-star soldier-level vampire dark apparition had died under Wang Ting's sword. It was unbelievable. The vampire had complex emotions in the split second before it died. If it woke up from its confusion, you could see many emotions on its face. Stunned, dumbfounded, disbelief. It was difficult to imagine how so many expressions could appear on its face in an instant. However, that wasn't important. The main thing was, it got killed by the proudest talent of their race, Bewitch. How funny was that? How ironic was that? Bang! After this ridiculous thought flashed past its mind, the vampire lost its vitality and slammed on the ground heavily. Spirit *30 Dark Force *65 Intermediate Stage Dark Talent *10 Wang Ting picked up all the attributes it dropped. He didn't give them a second glance, though, as he set his eyes on another dark apparition. Yi Kai-cheng had witnessed this scene personally. His throat turned dry, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He was mind blown. He couldn't calm down even after a long time. Roar. A roar was sounded beside his ear. He shuddered and evaded the attack haphazardly. Then, he turned and killed the dark apparition that had pounced on him. F***K. I'm not made of mud. Once Yi Kai-cheng got stimulated by Wang Ting, the viciousness hidden in his heart was ignited. He fought with the dark apparition with a distorted expression. Wang Ting placed his hands behind his wings and glanced at Yi Kai-cheng from the sky. The guy was powerful enough to handle his opponent alone. Wang Ting stopped looking at him, turned, and scanned the battlefield. His hair had grown long after staying on the Xingwu continent for so many days. The thick long black hair swayed in the wind as killing intent engulfed his body. It was impossible to look at him in the eye. After Li Rongxue settled the civilians of the city, she brought her men back to the city walls and participated in the battle. She was at the 4-star soldier level, so normal low-level dark apparitions weren't able to hurt her. Wan Feifeng was not far away from Su Lingxian. The rune masters were all being protected by the martial warriors as they did their jobs. Wan Feifeng was in charge of Su Lingxian. This lady was similarly at the 4-star soldier level. She was much stronger than her younger brothers. Wan Feipeng and Wan Feiyu were some distance away from her. The 3 siblings were kept close to one another so that they could take care of each other. No one could escape in a situation like this, but every family had some selfishness. It was only natural that they hoped nothing would happen to their younger generations. The same scene was happening everywhere. Although every family wanted to keep their bloodline running, the situation didn't allow them to. Who could remain unscathed in such dire circumstances? Many young people lay in pools of blood. Death was everywhere. Wang Ting floated down from the sky when he saw Su Lingxian. He asked in concern, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I just consumed too much power." Su Lingxian shook her head. Her face was pale. "Get some rest. You shouldn't force yourself." Wang Ting killed a dark apparition that came close. "All right." Su Lingxian understood Wang Ting's combat ability. With him protecting her, she felt at ease. She threw a spiritual dan in her mouth and sat down cross-legged to recover her strength. Wang Ting surveyed the surroundings. The progress of the battle was tragic. If thing went out of hand, he would listen to Gorlin's will and bring Su Lingxian away. The rune masters were upholding the defense array, but under the violent attacks of the dark apparitions, more and more cracks had appeared on the shield. The dark apparitions swarmed into the city and started another round of massacre. In the sky, the Eight-Arms Devil General was fighting Lord Yang, Gorlin, and Principal Yang alone. All his 8 thick arms were holding weapons. There were swords, blades, axes, spears. The black weapon that looked like a blade and a sword was exceptionally conspicuous. He forced the 3 human martial warriors back and laughed. "You won't be able to hold on for long." His voice was deafening. It spread throughout the city and caused many human martial warriors to shudder. They all felt despair creeping into their hearts. What the F***K, this 8-Arms Devil General can speak the human language. Wang Ting looked up and shouted in surprise. Li Rongxue, Wn Feifeng, Dongfang Yu, Yi Kai Cheng, the other humans around him, the 8-Arms Devil General, everyone felt like fainting when they looked at the astonished Wang Ting. "My dear, can't you see what situation we are in? Can you take notice of what's more important? Yang City is facing a crisis. Who cares if he can speak the human language? Wait, this isn't about whether he can speak the human language or not. We are not able to resist their attacks anymore." Wang Ting's voice was a little loud, so the people in the sky could hear him too. Gorlin felt the corners of his lips twitching. His disciple's thoughts were truly different from a normal person. He pretended like he didn't know this young man. "Ha ha ha, Gorlin, your disciple is interesting." Principal Yang burst out laughing. "He's just a little cheeky." Lord Yang was speechless. However, after Wang Ting's casual remark, the pressure on everyone's heart dissipated a little. Since Wang Ting wasn't afraid of this 8-Arms Devil General and even dared to tease it, they suddenly felt that it wasn't so terrifying anymore. They had 3 mighty martial warriors guarding the city. Moreover, the reinforcements would also arrive soon. There was still hope. They just had to grit their teeth and hold on. The veins on the 8-Arms Devil General's face jumped. He stared at Wang Ting with his blood-red eyes and said coldly, "Young man from the human race, you're amazing." As it spoke, it threw its long spear at him abruptly. No one expected it to attack Wang Ting. "Move." Gorlin's expression changed as his spiritual power shot out to prevent the spear from hitting Wang Ting. Despicable. Lord Yang and Principal Yang were infuriated. The 8-Arms Devil General actually attempted to kill a human talent right under their eyes. Below, Su Lingxian, Li Rongxue, and the others turned pale. They stared at the spear in fear as it shot towards Wang Ting with an indomitable aura. Wang Ting was shocked too. He didn't expect the 8-Arms Devil General to attack him. However, his reaction was swift. Spiritual power surged out as he stared at the spear gravely. It formed a barrier to stop the spear's assault. Everyone saw the battle spear pausing for a split second. However, it was still pushing forward steadily. There seemed to be an invisible barrier blocking its path. This was a furious strike from a general-stage formidable warrior. You could imagine how terrifying the attack was. Sweat dripped down Wang Ting's forehead. He had exhausted much of his spiritual power as he frantically blocked the battle spear. All of this happened within a few seconds. Thereafter, Gorlin's spiritual power caught up and formed a force to pull the spear back. The battle spear finally stopped moving due to these two forces. Clang! It dropped to the ground. Pant! Wang Ting took in a massive gulp of air. He could feel the lingering fear in his heart. He raised his head and glanced at the eight-armed devil general. Suddenly, he smiled. "I'll keep this long spear." He held the long spear in his hand. There was one more sentence he didn't say. He would let it suffer its retribution one day. The blood-red pupils of the eight-armed devil general flickered. It had sensed killing intent from Wang Ting's gaze. A nobody wanted to kill a giant that could hold the sky. Ha ha ha, interesting. This is really interesting. The eight-armed devil general laughed out loud. It looked at Wang Ting and replied, "I'll remember you." Chapter 313, Probing Death in the Eye. "I'll remember you." This sentence reverberated in the city like thunder. Everyone felt worried for Wang Ting. He might not get any good sleep after he got remembered by a general-stage formidable warrior. They looked at Wang Ting involuntarily. His expression was calm, though. He didn't seem to take it to heart. Don't. Why does a male animal like you need to remember me? I wouldn't mind if you were a beauty." "Oh, right, are there female dark apparitions?" Never mind. Even if there are, they must be as ugly as you," Wang Ting countered. Everyone, they were speechless. Their minds were trembling. They stared at Wang Ting in disbelief. He almost died a moment ago, but he still dared to humiliate the eight-armed devil general. He called it an animal and even said it was ugly. He was probing death in the eye. But he helped them to vent their frustrations. They felt refreshed for some reason till they looked up at the black face of the eight-armed devil general. Although they couldn't glean anything, it must be furious. Anger was probably burning in its heart. Li Rongxue and Su Lingxian wanted to stop him. He had angered the devil once, and he was doing it again. Did he think that he was too old? You must have never experienced real despair before. The eight-armed devil general's cold voice sounded. "Once I capture the city, I'll tear you into pieces, bit by bit." "I'm so scared." Wang Ting shrunk his body and pretended to look frightened. However, he smiled and continued, "Let's wait for you to capture the city first." His words. His tone. Why did it sound so infuriating? Boom. The eight-armed devil general was at the brink of exploding in anger. It took a step forward and wanted to squash this little human brat who humiliated it. "Your opponent is us." Lord Yang and Principal Yang almost blew their tops. They were already enraged when the eight-armed devil general had attacked Wang Ting in front of them just now. Now, it wanted to do the same thing again. It didn't put them in its eyes at all. "Lord Yang, Principal Yang, hold him first," Gorlin said coldly. Speaking of anger, Gorlin was definitely more furious than the other two. Wang Teng was his disciple. What the eight-armed devil general did was unforgivable. Lord Yang and Principal Yang knew what Gorlin wanted to do. They exchanged glances with each other and nodded grimly. "Okay, we'll try our best to gain more time for you." The eight-armed devil general looked at Gorlin involuntarily. However, Lord Yang and Principal Yang charged towards it, and the three of them were engaged in an intense battle. What's Master planning to do? Wang Ting looked up in confusion. He saw Gorlin leaving the battleground of the three powerful warriors and sitting cross-legged in the air. A terrifying and powerful spiritual power surged out of his mind. Master wants to form an array. Wang Ting's eyes lit up. He understood what was happening. Wisps of spiritual kineses spread throughout the air. They seemed to be outlining an image, and runes started glowing in the sky. I wonder what array Master is making. Su Lingxian wondered aloud in confusion. She seemed a little excited. No matter what array it is, it needs time. Wang Tung looked grave. He wasn't as optimistic. They were evenly matched when the three of them fought with the eight-armed devil general together. With only two left, he didn't know if they could keep it away for long. At the same time, more and more dark apparitions were charging into Yang City. The human martial warriors couldn't handle it anymore. The situation was getting from worse to worst. Wang Teng frowned as he looked into the distance. I wonder when the reinforcements will arrive. Senior brother, go and help them. The princess can't fight them back anymore, Su Lingxian suddenly said agitatedly. Wang Teng turned around. Indeed, Li Rongxue was showing signs of exhaustion. There were many dark apparitions around them, and they couldn't ward them off. Okay. Stay here. Don't run around, he shouted at Su Lingxian before dashing towards Li Rongxue and her subordinates. Slash. He held his sword in his right hand, while another battle blade appeared in his left hand. He was attacking with both hands. Sword and blade glows intertwined with each other and formed a huge web, enveloping the dark apparitions around him. In an instant, numerous dark apparitions were killed. Li Rongxue and her men were shocked. He knows blade skills too. Leave this to me, Wang Teng said without turning his head. He charged into the cluster of dark apparitions. One blade and one sword. The aura of the blade and the sword slashed through the groups of dark apparitions. It was invincible. Wn Feiyu and Wn Feipeng were flabbergasted. They blurted without thinking, "Is this fellow human?" Suddenly, they felt fortunate that they didn't continue to pester Wang Teng. Who could afford to offend a monster like him? Wn Feifeng wiped her cold sweat secretly, feeling a little guilty in her heart. She wanted to take revenge for her younger brothers, but now, she felt that she needed to think about it carefully. Peace was precious, after all. Furthermore, her younger brothers were at fault in the first place. She was a reasonable person. She wouldn't confuse right and wrong. Yes, her stupid brothers hadn't been educated for a long time and kept causing trouble outside. If they managed to survive this battle, she would take care of them properly. Wn Feipeng and Wn Feiyu suddenly felt a chill down their backs. They had a bad feeling. They looked around them in confusion, wondering where this sudden chill came from. Wang Ting was fighting with all his might. With the blade and the sword in his hands, he cut apart many dark apparitions like chopping carrots. The dark apparitions kept getting thrown back. They were either stabbed in their hearts or had their heads slammed. Swoosh. Suddenly, he heard a soft sound. Wang Teng suddenly felt a piercing pain on his back near his heart. The malicious intent caused his head to turn numb. It's too late. The sneak attack had caught him off guard. Even with his speed, he wouldn't be able to evade it at this distance. Oh right. In this life-or-death situation, many thoughts flashed past his mind. He had an idea. Space talent. Instantly, the space around Wang Ting started distorting. Slash. A pitch-black blade pierced through Wang Ting's heart. Die. A sinister voice was heard at the same time. Li Rongxue and Su Lingxian's expressions changed. Their hearts scrunched up as they stared at this scene in a daze. However, the next moment, the figure dissipated slowly. The attacker was dumbstruck. Boom. A powerful flaming sword glow struck the attacker's body and sent him back flying like a cannonball. Bang. Splurt. The attacker smashed on the ground heavily. His back was mangled, and his entire body was engulfed in flames. Blood spurted out of his mouth. It's you. You aren't dead. Wang Ting's figure slowly appeared again. He was shocked when he saw the attacker's appearance. It was Yarrow Hongshou. However, his appearance had changed tremendously. Dark green veins were bulging on his skin, along with black patterns. His entire body was covered with dark force. He wasn't a human anymore. This was assimilation. Chapter 314. Bullshit. I only killed one. Assimilation. Someone shouted the word directly. Everyone was thunderstruck as they looked at Yarrow Hongshou's face. At the same time, looks of disdain flashed in their eyes. They didn't even bother hiding their contempt. Dark apparitions were condemned by all humans, much less a human who had voluntarily turned into a dark apparition. This was even more atrocious. He was a traitor. He was born a human, yet he gave up his position in the human race. He turned himself into a dark apparition and allowed himself to fall into the abyss. They still remembered that he was the one who called the dark apparitions. He was the reason for this disaster befalling Yang City. Everyone glared at him, wanting to peel his skin and eat his flesh. Are you surprised? A sound came out of Yarrow Hongshou's mouth. He was shimmering in black light. The black glow swallowed the flames on his body, and his wounds started healing. Black smoke rose from his body. "He's fine." Wang Teng squinted when he saw this scene. He didn't hold back when he attacked him just now. However, Yarrow Hongsho was able to recuperate so quickly. He mustn't underestimate his healing ability after he was assimilated. "I'm curious about how you evaded my attack just now." Yarrow Hongsho crawled up from the ground and said. "Do you want to know?" Wang Ting tilted his head and looked at him. He smiled. "I'm not telling you." "Yarrow Hongsho, I'll make sure you can't smile soon, you brat. No one can save you today. I'll tear you into pieces to avenge my sons." His gaze was hostile, and his expression was sinister. "Don't spout nonsense. What do you mean by sons? I only killed one of them." Wang Teng was furious as though he got framed. He would admit it if he did it, but if he didn't, he would never be framed. He was Wang Teng, a person with principles. Only. Yarrow Hongsho trembled in anger. "I know that you helped that bitch Li Rongxue to kill my son, Yarrow Yu. You have a part to play too. I'll kill you first before killing that bitch." Wang Teng felt a little awkward upon getting exposed. He scratched his head and replied sincerely, "Actually, you might not be able to kill me. I admit that you're a talent, and you're not weak. You're able to withstand my attack." It was surprising. "But do you think that that was my true power? If those old fellows hadn't protected you, you wouldn't be standing here," Yarrow Hongsho mocked him. He clenched his fist and felt the surging energy in his body. He then said in a mesmerized tone, "What's more, I have become more powerful now." Wang Ting squinted slightly. He had to admit that Yarrow Hongsho became stronger after he turned into a dark apparition. He didn't notice him when Yarrow Hongsho hid in the dark and attacked him secretly. Without his space talent, he would be seriously injured from the attack. Yarrow Hongsho. At this moment, a few angry hollers came from the sky. The sound of air breaking came directly after. A few figures flew over from afar. They were the family heads of Yang City. They yelled at Yarrow Hongsho indignantly. "Yarrow Hongsho, how dare you appear again? You're a sinner. Ha ha ha." Yarrow Hongsho lowered his head and gave a sinister laugh. Then, he looked up abruptly. His expression was hideous, and there was a red light glimmering in his eyes. "Is it really my fault? Since you didn't give me a chance, I'll make you suffer too. You will all accompany my son in death." Angry howls came out from his mouth. He had turned into a maniac, looking like a devil. Everyone's expression was ugly. They felt a chill rising in their heart when they saw his crazed look. "Your Yarrow family is also in Yang City. You attracted the dark apparitions here. They won't be able to escape if Yang City collapses," the family head of the WN family bellowed angrily. "The Yarrow family lives where I live. If I die, there's no need for the Yarrow family to exist," Yarrow Hongsho said with a cold smile. Everyone was speechless. Maniac. Yarrow Hongsho had turned crazy. He was beyond hope. Kill him together. A few powerful warriors looked at one another and started attacking. They executed their force battle techniques and aimed them at Yarrow Hongsho. "I have turned into a dark apparition. You're not my match anymore." Yarrow Hongsho was extremely arrogant. He stepped in the air and destroyed all the attacks. Then, his hands turned into sharp claws, with black glows shining around them. He clawed at his opponents. The martial warriors shuttled back and forth in the air. When their forces collided, they gave off loud explosions. Wang Ting spread his flaming wings behind him. He held his battle sword in his hand and darted into the battlefield. It was a heated battle. WN Feifeng, Dongfang Yu, and the others had also noticed the situation here. From afar, they could only see the figures colliding continuously in mid-air. Every attack was earth-shattering, leaving their minds in a jumbled state. This is the battle between 6-star soldier-level martial warriors. If Wang Ting is able to join them, has his ability reached that stage already? They found it unbelievable. He was their peer, but he could already fight alongside the famous martial warriors. Compared to him, they suddenly felt extremely weak. Boom! A figure suddenly fell from the sky, smashing a large hole in the city wall. Everyone looked at the person carefully. It was Yarrow Hongsho. Right now, he was in a miserable state. He was injured, and blood was seeping out from the corners of his mouth. Yet, he smiled evilly. He flew up again, disregarding the fresh blood beside his lips. This bastard must be a cockroach. The other 6-star soldier-level martial warriors looked at one another in frustration. They didn't expect Yarrow Hongsho to be so difficult to deal with. They beat him again and again, but he recovered every single time. His recovery speed was astonishing. Wang Teng looked up. Gorlin's array was only halfway through. However, Lord Yang and Principal Yang were gradually retreating under the attacks of the 8-arms Devil General. They were in a difficult position. Bang! The 8-arms Devil General hit Principal Yang with its special weapon, the one that looked like a sword and a blade. There were weapons on every single hand, so it was hard to defend against them. Lord Yang threw an attack at the 8-arms Devil General and made use of the recoil force to distance himself from the devil. He panted as he said to Principal Yang, "Old Yang, are you alright? Don't worry. I'm not dead yet." Principal Yang stopped in mid-air. He replied to Lord Yang indifferently as he wiped the blood off his lips. "You are not my match," said the 8-arms Devil General. He then ignored them and turned to fly towards Gorlin. He could sense a hint of danger from this unfinished array. He mustn't let it be completed. Lord Yang and Principal Yang darted between Gorlin and the 8-arms Devil General. "We're not done yet. Why are you running away? Get lost." The 8-arms Devil General raged. The sound wave swept through the air, making people dizzy from the vibration. They were scared witless. "Chimpage, why are you shouting? So what if you have a loud voice?" Principal Yang scoffed and blocked in front of Gorlin. He didn't budge an inch. "Nuisance. Let me kill you first." The 8-arms Devil General glared at them and moved his 8 arms furiously. Amidst the black glow, it attacked with a thick dark force, looking like a tyrannical god of evil. Lord Yang and Principal Yang turned solemn. They looked at each other and executed their strongest battle technique to welcome the devil's renewed onslaught. Chapter 315, Yarrow Hongsho Must Die. Invincible Sword Presence. Wang Teng was worried about the battle between the 3 martial warriors and the 8-arms Devil General. The situation wasn't optimistic. He retracted his gaze and looked at Yarrow Hongsho, who was fighting with the 6-star soldier-level martial warriors. His eyes became sharp and cold. "I must deal with him quickly." Wang Ting held the battle sword in his hand and recalled all the abilities he possessed. He was searching for a way to kill Yarrow Hongsho. He couldn't recover infinitely. As long as he attacked his lethal point, he could destroy him, preventing him from recuperating again. He wondered if dark apparitions were able to resist the poison force of the demon lotus poison body. A meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his lips. He moved and shifted away from the battlefield, circling around them instead. What is Wang Teng doing? Many people were paying attention to this intense fight. They hated Yarrow Hongsho bitterly and wanted to see him get killed on the spot. It would bring them great satisfaction. But Yarrow Hongsho was unexpectedly powerful. Despite surrounding him from all sides, they couldn't bring him down. This was when they saw Wang Ting leaving the team and circling outside the battleground. He didn't help them anymore. Was he afraid of going forward because he got scared by Yarrow Hongsho? Hes looking for an opening and waiting for a chance, Dongfang Yu said as she fought with the dark apparitions around her. She saw through his intention at a glance. She was getting tired from killing the dark apparitions, but she soldiered on. The others were fighting dark apparitions too. However, they would glance at the sky occasionally. At the moment, 2 important battles were taking place. One was the battle with the 8-arms Devil General. This was the most crucial battle. If someone died, the young city would fall too. After all, one general stage martial warrior was enough to influence a war. The other was Wang Ting's battle. Yarrow Hongsho must die. This was the thought in everyone's mind. If he lived, it would be unfair for the civilians of Yang City. I hope he succeeds. Li Rongxue prayed silently as she looked at Wang Teng's figure. She felt guilty in her heart. Yarrow Hongsho turned crazy because she had killed Yarrow Yu. That was why he wanted to destroy the entire Yang city. She felt that she was partly responsible and was unsettled. Yet, the main culprit, Yarrow Hongsho, was still at loose. Li Rongxue couldn't accept this. She must answer to the civilians of Yang city. Killing Yarrow Hongsho was the answer. She couldn't do it, so she could only place her hopes on Wang Ting. After all, that fellow wasn't an ordinary genius. Wang Ting was looking for Yarrow Hongsho's weakness so that he could land a lethal blow. It was impossible to kill Yarrow Hongsho with a normal attack. It had to be a full-force attack aimed at his weakness. There was only one chance. He must find the right moment. The other martial warriors fighting with Yarrow Hongsho understood Wang Ting's intention and helped him. They didn't belittle him because his stage was lower. They recognized his ability. This man was young, but he was competent. They mustn't judge him in a conventional way. He might really be able to kill Yarrow Hongsho in a single strike. Yarrow Hongsho glanced at Wang Ting, and an evil smile appeared at the edge of his lips. "Brat, use all your attacks on me. After I kill these old fellows, you can also go to hell." Wang Ting didn't reply to him. He stared at Yarrow Hongsho's moving body intently. Force ran through his body and congregated at the tip of his sword, shining with a brilliant glow. This moment, the explosion of the 9th-level sword presence. Wang Ting raised his long sword. Clang! The sound of a sword leaving its sheath resounded in the area. A gigantic and fiery red sword glow shot into the air, seemingly piercing the sky. Raging flames rose from Wang Ting's body and enveloped half the sky in an instant. Heat waves soared straight to the horizon. Wisps of sword presence were instilled in the waves. The people below were struck dumb with astonishment. They stared at Wang Ting absent-mindedly. Their jaws almost dropped to the floor. Yarrow Hongsho felt as if his heart was entangled by a lethal sword aura. Once it fell on him, he would be drowned in this indomitable sword presence. He must hide. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Once Wang Ting pushed his sword forward, the fiery red sword glow shot out like an arrow. The sky and the earth were filled with sword aura. The boundless sword aura turned into a tornado. Yarrow Hongsho was in the center of the storm. His face was filled with bewilderment. He couldn't believe this. He didn't understand how Wang Ting was able to launch such a formidable attack. Yarrow Hongsho stood in a daze. His entire body was engulfed by a thick aura of death. Dark force gushed out frantically, and the black glow around him shimmered weakly, trying its best to protect its master. The sword aura solidified. In the end, Yarrow Hongsho couldn't withstand the attack. Sword wounds appeared on his body, and fresh blood splattered everywhere. He could also sense another force in this sword aura. This force was corroding the dark force in his body. "What is this?" Yarrow Hongsho's expression changed. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. Poison force. This was only the start, though. A glaring sword glow suddenly appeared in thin air. As he was getting weaker, it penetrated through his heart. Yarrow Hongsho widened his eyes in shock. He lowered his head slowly and felt that his heart had shattered. Only crumbs were left in its original spot. The dawn of death. Endless darkness swallowed his consciousness. Without the defense of the dark force, his human body wasn't able to withstand the sword presence. It tore into pieces. Yarrow Hongsho died on the spot. No corpse was left. The sword presence dispersed slowly. There was dead silence. The sword presence also targeted the dark apparitions, so an empty area appeared after the attack dissipated. The human martial warriors stood on the ground in a stupor. Slurp. You could hear people swallowing their saliva. They had lost their ability to speak. Is he still a human? Yi Kai-cheng couldn't help but curse. All the eyes were focused on Wang Ting. He was still in his attacking posture. Crack. Suddenly, a crack sound was heard from the battle sword in his hand. It broke inch by inch under everyone's astonished gazes. Finally, only the sword hilt was left in his hand. Even the battle sword wasn't able to resist the frightening sword presence. This battle sword had followed Wang Ting for a long time. He didn't expect it to break today. The other 6-star soldier-level martial warriors had retreated when Wang Teng launched his attack. As they were closer to him, they had a deeper impression of the power of this sword presence. They weren't able to exert a sword presence this powerful. This young man was a monster. On the other side of the battlefield, the 8-arms devil general turned around and squinted slightly. A malicious look appeared in its eyes. This human must be killed. The morale of the humans was invigorated after Wang Teng killed Yarrow Hongsho. However, they were still at a disadvantage. Gorlin had also reached the crucial stage. His forehead was filled with perspiration, and his face was pale. Yet, he persevered. As long as the array got completed, the tides would turn. At this moment, a black glow flew out beside him and headed straight for Gorlin. Chapter 316. I'll take it from here. Gorlin was wholly focused on completing the array. A huge array was already taking form with him in the center. Numerous runes shimmered brightly, presenting a glamorous view. A vague sense of danger seeped out from the array. Even the 8-arms devil general felt uneasy. However, an evil smile had appeared at the edge of its lips. Suddenly, a black light flew towards Gorlin from the side. It was extremely fast, like a bolt of black lightning. Although Gorlin's attention was entirely on the array, his spiritual power had enveloped the array, so he noticed the black light the moment it entered his territory. However, it came at the speed of lightning and reached him in an instant. Gorlin's expression changed. He let loose a wisp of spiritual power to attack the black light. The black light stopped for a second before penetrating the wall formed by the spiritual power. It furiously slammed into Gorlin's arm. The black light finally revealed its true form. It was a glistening black snake. Once Gorlin got bitten on his arm, his face turned black, and his spiritual power suffered a backlash. He vomited a mouthful of blood. Gorlin, Principal Yang and Lord Yang noticed the situation at once. Their expressions changed. Ha ha ha. The 8-arms devil general laughed loudly. It was beyond elated for succeeding in its sneak attack. President Gorlin, Master Gorlin. Many people below noticed this sudden change too. They were enraged. The 8-arms devil general was despicable. How could it use such a shameless method? Everyone started feeling uneasy when Gorlin was poisoned. This meant that the array wasn't going to get completed. The human race immediately fell into an unfavorable situation. Master Wang Ting also felt infuriated when he saw what happened. His eyes almost popped out in anger. He remembered how Gorlin had treated him during this period. He didn't mind his background and taught him everything he knew without reservation. He even spoke up and protected him when he was in trouble. It was a lie to say that Wang Ting wasn't grateful in his heart. Now that he was poisoned and injured, Wang Ting shot up without any hesitation. Gorlin was in the most dangerous state now. If someone attacked him suddenly, he wouldn't have the ability to resist. At this moment, 2 figures suddenly appeared and blocked Wang Ting. Their 5-star soldier-level dark forces were surging, and they had black wings on their backs. They were clearly powerful. Move. Killing intent shot out of Wang Ting's eyes. He threw the dark apparitions back with a single punch. He didn't hold back at all. He wanted to kill the dark apparitions quickly so that he could reinforce Gorlin. A look of contempt appeared on the dark apparitions' faces. They were high-level dark apparitions, talented and smart. Their bodies were impenetrable too. This young man's sword skill was formidable, no doubt, but his sword was already broken. He couldn't execute his sword skills anymore, yet he wanted to fight with them in close combat. He must be dreaming. But, the next second, their expressions changed slightly. Boom. A strong force smashed into their bodies. They were caught off guard. Wang Ting had received a physical skill scripture from Senior Cheng Wu when he was in the military academy. It was called the Raging Bull skill. He had already reached the perfected stage after practicing it daily. Hence, his body was strong, and his strength was extraordinary. After combining strength with force, the air around him started exploding. This was a display of its power. Once the dark apparitions were thrown back, blood spurted out of their mouths. They were flabbergasted. On the other side, Lord Yang and Principal Yang held back the 8-arms Devil General with all their might so that it didn't have the energy to attack Gorlin. The 8-arms Devil General's gaze turned cold. It ordered, "Kill him." A figure flew over from afar and prepared to attack Gorlin. After Gorlin got poisoned, he hurriedly ate a spiritual Dan to maintain his consciousness. However, the spiritual Dan couldn't cure the poison completely. It could only slow down its invasion. He forcefully maintained the array while grabbing the poisonous snake with one hand. He noticed that it was dead. He wanted to throw it away, but upon thinking of something, he kept it in his space ring. He also noticed a dark apparition charging towards him, so he could only divert some spiritual power and used his fire force to attack his opponent with the arts of a divine spirit master. As for the array, he could barely maintain it at its current state. He didn't have the energy to complete it. Fireballs shot towards the attacker. The other party evaded in mid-air and kept getting closer to Gorlin. Master. Su Lingxian looked up at the sky anxiously, feeling frantic in her heart. She had followed Gorlin for the longest time, so they were like grandfather and granddaughter. Their relationship was closer than Wang Teng's. She turned around and looked at Wang Teng. "Senior brother, hurry." Her heart had already jumped to her throat. Wang Teng dashed towards Gorlin once again. However, the two dark apparitions were like plasters sticking to him. They knew that they couldn't beat Wang Ting, so they didn't confront him head-on. Instead, they kept pestering and blocking his path. Wang Ting's expression turned cold. A battle blade appeared in his hand, and he slashed at them. Blade presence bore down on the dark apparitions. The two dark apparitions dodged quickly when they saw Wang Ting's blade. They flew far away. However, at this moment, the space in front of them started distorting. A ray of glaring light appeared out of nowhere. It split into two sharp rays and pierced through the hearts of these two dark apparitions. The dark apparitions widened their eyes in shock. They lost their lives even before they understood what happened. Wang Teng didn't even bother picking up the attribute bubbles. He darted through them and charged straight forward. One Gorlin was in critical condition. He was seriously injured and couldn't resist his opponent's attack. He was struggling on the precipice of death. The dark apparition had a long spear in its hand, and its tip was shimmering with a poisonous glint. He assaulted Gorlin like a tempestuous storm. A flaming shield congregated in front of Gorlin. Boom! Under the enemy's attack, the flaming shield disintegrated instantly. It cracked little by little. "Old man, die." The dark apparition finally arrived in front of Gorlin. It gave a hideous smile as it stabbed his long spear out. Lord Yang and Principal Yang were worried, but they couldn't break free. "You can't save him." The 8-arms Devil General gave a delighted smile. The moment he finished speaking, an angry shout echoed in the air. It caused his expression to freeze instantly. "You're looking for death." A glaring blade glow chopped the sky into two. Pale white blade aura lit up half the night sky. The dark apparition's expression changed, and it flew back at high speed. Unfortunately, it was too late. The powerful blade presence was locked on it. It followed it closely, unwilling to let go, and struck him from above. Boom! The blade aura filled up the entire sky. The blade glow cut the dark apparition from the head all the way to its toe. It was split into two. Ah! A cry of agony stopped abruptly. The two halves of the dark apparition fell to the ground along with a puddle of blood. "It's him. It's him again." The smile on the 8-arms Devil General's face was stuck there. Then, it disappeared, and his expression turned eerie. He was exasperated. Clenching his weapons tightly, veins popped out of his forehead and arms. How infuriating. Gorlin smiled when he saw the person who came. He couldn't maintain his posture anymore and fell to the ground. The uncompleted array was at the brink of breaking down. "Master." Wang Teng held him up worriedly. "Quick, the array is going to crumble." A tinge of hope appeared in Gorlin's eyes as he spoke weakly. "Don't worry. Master, I'll take it from here." Wang Teng nodded seriously. Chapter 317. This man is frightening. He must be killed. Everyone was fighting their own battle on the battlefield. Powerful warriors against powerful apparitions and low-rank martial warriors against low-rank dark apparitions. 7-star, 8-star, and 9-star soldier-level martial warriors were considered high-rank martial warriors. Since they numbered a few, they were mostly targeted and pestered by the powerful dark apparitions. It was hard for them to break free. When Gorlin was attacked just now, 2 6-star soldier-level martial warriors tried their best before they freed themselves and were able to help him. Wang Teng passed Gorlin to the martial warriors who came. Then, he sat down cross-legged in the middle of the array. Everyone was puzzled when they saw this. What is Wang Teng doing? Has Master Gorlin's disciple? Could he? While wondering aloud, their eyes widened in surprise. A thought appeared in their mind uncontrollably. He wants to complete the array on behalf of Master Gorlin. They swallowed their saliva involuntarily when this ridiculous notion popped up. During the battle just now, Wang Ting had already showcased his frightening martial arts cultivation. He had reached 5-star soldier level at a young age and was skilled in both blade and sword. He had slain an uncountable number of dark apparitions and even one 6-star soldier level dark apparition. Last but not least, the assimilated Yarrow Hongsho had also died in his hands. There was nothing wrong with calling him a monster. Looking at him now, he seemed to be an exceptional rune master too. If not, he wouldn't be able to take over Master Gorlin's high-level array. As Li Rongxue recovered her strength, she asked Su Lingxian curiously, "Lingxian, what level rune master is he?" Su Lingyun and Liu Xinghue were maintaining the defense array not far away. Wn Feifeng, Dongfang Yu, and the other talents were also close to her. When they heard Liu Xinghui's question, they looked at Su Lingxian with curiosity in their eyes. Su Lingxian heaved a sigh of relief after Wang Ting saved Gorlin. When she saw Wang Ting wanting to replace Gorlin to complete the array, she was stunned too. She replied subconsciously when she heard Li Rongxue. In the past, he was an intermediate stage rune master. He never took another test after that. However, Master says that he has improved at an exponential speed, so he might. Li Rongxue and the other gasped. Might what? Although Su Lingxian didn't finish her sentence, everyone could guess it. Wang Teng might have become an advanced stage rune master. He might even be close to advancing to the master level. They never imagined that Wang Ting had already reached master level. That stage wasn't easy to reach. A genius like Wang Ting might achieve it in the future, but not now. He was too young. Even so, they were dumbstruck. How monstrous was this fellow? Liu Xinghue was talented in runes and was always called a genius. When he compared himself to Wang Teng, it was natural for him to get jealous. However, he was trembling in fright. What kind of presence was this? This fellow wasn't human. 2402:800:6118, AAA 7:743B, Edcate 5C7F, 5891. His martial arts cultivation was exceptional. Even if it was his father, he might not be able to beat him. He mustn't provoke him in the future. If not, just thinking of the consequences caused Liu Xinghue to shiver. Scary. This was the right time to follow his heart. On the other hand, Su Lingyun had different emotions. She realized that her jealousy towards Su Lingxian was getting stronger. Why? They were both born in the Su family. Her father was the head of the family, and her status was higher than Su Lingxian. Yet, she always lost to her. Her beauty, her talent, none of them were better than Su Lingxian's. She was even accepted as Gorlin's disciple. The outstanding young man had a good relationship with her, while she couldn't find any ways to get close to him. Failure was making her go crazy. Dongfang Yu, Yi Kai Cheng, and the other talents looked at Wang Ting with flickering gazes. They couldn't regain their composure for a while. Wang Ting didn't know how complicated everyone was feeling. He glanced at the 8-arms devil general with a smile at the corner of his lips. The smile was indifferent. He wasn't afraid of the 8-arms devil general. In fact, there was even a hint of provocation in his smile. It seemed a little evil. This little brat. The 8-arms devil general's expression turned distorted. He wanted to pounce on Wang Ting and punch him with all of his 8 arms. As a general stage formidable warrior in a high position, he was always respected and feared by the masses. No one dared to act so atrociously in front of him. But Lord Yang and Principal Yang were obstructing him with all their might. He couldn't break free from them. Lord Yang and Principal Yang were also astounded in their hearts. They felt that this fellow was full of surprises. They couldn't help but place their hopes on Wang Ting. Thus, they would never allow the past to repeat. The two 6-star martial warriors placed Gorlin in a safe place and returned to the array. Young man, complete the array at ease. We'll guard you. Let's see who dares to disturb you, one of the martial warriors said. Wang Ting nodded, his expression turning grave. He had learned this array from Gorlin before, and he remembered all the structure and shapes of the runes. However, this was an advanced stage, 6-star array. Only master-level rune masters could create 6-star rune arrays. Still, its might was astonishing, able to kill a general stage martial warrior. It would be difficult for Wang Ting to set up this array alone based on his current cultivation. However, Gorlin had completed most of it. He just needed to carve the last portion of the runes. Yet, this last portion was the most crucial part. This array was from the inside out. The closer to the core, the more important the runes. The middle of this array was the core. The runes that formed the core needed to be extremely precise. A slight mistake could cause the entire array to disintegrate, and the efforts put in would go to waste. But Gorlin believed in him. Hence, Wang Ting couldn't disappoint him. Furthermore, they were facing a crisis. He must not and could not fail. It could be said that once this array was formed, the wheel of victory would spin to the human side. Wang Ting took a deep breath and turned serious. Boom! A thick spiritual power exploded from Wang Ting's mind. It surged out like a dragon roaring out from its den and soaring into the sky. Emperor Realm! Everyone was shocked. This spiritual power felt so real. It was spiritual kinesis. Wang Ting wasn't just an advanced stage rune master, but he had also awakened the rare spiritual kinesis. How could they describe his talent? This monster must be the illegitimate child of God and Lady Luck, right? He was so powerful. The spiritual kinesis even felt as powerful as Gorlin's. The thought flashed in Lord Yang's and Principal Yang's minds. They were thunderstruck. Gorlin's disciple might surpass his master one day. The younger generations below felt bitter. Was this Wang Ting's real strength? Was he really a young man and not some ancient demon? On the other hand, malicious intent spread in the 8-arms devil general's heart. This young man was too terrifying. He must be killed. If not, he would become a massive threat to the Darkland in the future. Chapter 318. So anxious that they wanted to pee in the sky, a vast circular formation spun slowly, covering a large area. Lights glowed on the array, and a powerful spiritual power enveloped the formation. Runes were slowly carved in the core. A figure sat in the middle of the array with a grim expression. All his attention was on completing the formation, leaving him with no energy to care about the tragic battle outside. Eyes were the windows to one's soul, and there was a holy light shimmering in his eyes at the moment. This was a sign that he was using his spiritual kinesis to its extreme. Bang! Suddenly, a loud explosion came from the defense array below. It shattered into small pieces and disintegrated into motes of lights. The human martial warriors were shaken up. They were the first to suffer after the defense array was destroyed. Without its protection, a large number of dark apparitions would surge into the city. No one knew how many people would be killed. As expected, the dark apparitions that were blocked by the shield poured into the city like a dam had been broken. The pressure on the human race multiplied. Many martial warriors got surrounded by multiple dark apparitions and were bitten to death directly. "I'll go down and help." The 6-star soldier-level martial warriors guarding Wang Ting grieved when they saw the bitter scene unfold. The other person hesitated for a moment. Accidents might happen to Wang Ting if one of them left. Gorlin was an example. "Both of you can leave. I can handle it alone," Wang Ting suddenly said. "How can we do that?" "One of us has to stay behind at least," the martial warriors said. "Go." Wang Ting glared at them. The martial warriors felt scared somehow under his stare. They felt as though they were facing a character like Gorlin. No. If something happens to you, well, be the sinners of the whole city. Nonetheless, the martial warriors remained firm in their stance. I have a way to protect myself. Don't worry and go. If Yang City collapses, everything we've done so far will be useless. Wang Ting ignored them after he finished speaking. He continued focusing on the array, not daring to get distracted again. The loss of concentration just now had almost resulted in a mistake. The difficulty of this formation exceeded his expectations. The last sentence might have convinced the martial warriors. They exchanged glances with each other and nodded resolutely. Be careful. The next second, they charged down to help the defense. Time flew. Soon, the night was coming to an end. Many people had died in this battle, but the war still continued. The young generation of talents suffered heavy losses. Yi Kai-cheng lost an arm, while Dongfang Yu was severely injured. Although people were protecting Li Rongxue, she was still seriously wounded. Leaning on her sword, she looked at the battlefield with a sorrowful expression. Only 2 Wan siblings were left. Wan Feipeng died. He died willingly to save his stupid younger brother. This might be the innate emotions of humans. They wouldn't be able to disregard the ties between their families. Wan Feiyu cried his heart out when his brother fell. He wanted to kill all the dark apparitions to take revenge for his brother, but he was helpless. He was brought to a safe location by his men. Wan Feifeng had turned mad from the massacre. She had a good relationship with her siblings since they were young. Yet, one of them died tonight. She believed it was her fault and felt regret and agony enshrouding her whole being. She could only kill more to numb her heart. Similar scenes happened everywhere. People were dying every second. This was an unfair fight, to begin with. The dark apparitions came without any warning and had the advantage of numbers. On the other hand, the martial warriors in Yang City didn't have any time to prepare. They were at an extreme disadvantage. Some 6-star soldier-level martial warriors had also fallen in this cruel battle. They were boss-level characters no matter where they went, yet many of them lost their lives here. It was a massive loss for the human race. Wang Teng glanced down below and was deeply shocked. For some reason, sorrow poured out from the depth of his heart. The human race. The human race. There seemed to be a faraway voice screaming from the depth of his soul. It felt like a dream, but it felt real too. It was hard to describe. He closed his eyes and stopped looking at the tragic state below. Only the last bit of the formation was left. He mustn't get distracted now. Anyone who kills him will get 10,000 devil crystals, the 8-arms devil general suddenly shouted. As soon as his voice faded, malicious glints shone in the eyes of the dark apparitions. Immediately, some 5-star and 6-star dark apparitions shot up into the sky. Kill. Ha ha ha, die. The dark apparitions released all their attacks at Wang Ting 10,000 devil crystals. This was enough to turn the dark apparitions crazy. Shameless. Lord Yang and Principal Yang glared at the 8-arms devil general. Although they were injured and exhausted, they continued battling with the 8-arms devil general despite panting loudly. Stop them. The two of them shouted. The human martial warriors ignored the enemies they were fighting and rushed towards the dark apparitions to stop their attacks. However, a portion of the attacks still continued flying towards Wang Ting. Lord Yang and Principal Yang stared at Wang Teng intently. They couldn't free themselves and save him. This helplessness threw them into despair. Was Wang Ting going to follow Gorlin's footsteps? Were they going to fail after persevering for so long? The alarm in Wang Ting's heart ran as danger befell him. He snorted, and earth force flowed out of his body. It formed layers of shield around him. They were like walls and walls of bricks. All the attacks landed on the shields. The shields broke layer by layer, but in the end, there were still 3 walls left. However, all the attacks had disappeared. Wang Teng remained unscathed. Earth force. Lord Yang and Principal Yang heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were amazed at the same time. They remembered that Wang Teng had executed fire force and metal force in the past. Now, He had displayed his earth force. 3 elements martial warrior. This was a great surprise. The youngsters below were almost numb now. How many trump cards did this fellow have? Again and again. There seemed to be no end to it. It stimulated their minds without stopping. The smiles on the dark apparitions' faces froze, and they felt infuriated. 10,000 devil crystals had just flown away. The 8-arms devil general had never felt so helpless towards a person. But he experienced it personally now. He could clearly feel his mentality breaking down. Why? Why? Is this fellow my natural enemy sent from heaven? Kill him, kill him. If you don't kill him, I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons to make candles. The 8-arms devil general raged. The dark apparitions were devastated and suddenly felt wronged. They initially wanted to kill Wang Ting for the 10,000 devil crystals, but now, they would be turned into candles if they couldn't succeed. You should have said that earlier. Why didn't you say it before? We wouldn't have attacked him if you said it. What a loss. The dark apparitions felt hidden bitterness. They had no choice but to attack Wang Ting again. After all, if he didn't die, they would be turned into candles. However, the human martial warriors had arrived to stop the dark apparitions. The long-range attacks were blocked by Wang Ting's earth shield, so they couldn't even see him, much less kill him. For a moment, the dark apparitions felt so anxious that they wanted to pee. We will die. Let us kill him quickly. Move please, sob. Suddenly, a frightening aura erupted from the formation above them. The array was finished. Chapter 319 The 8 Universe Ablaze Dragon Array. A strong sense of danger spread out from the formation above them. The array was finally completed. Success. Lord Yang and Principal Yang were elated. The humans below also let out relieved smiles. They started cheering. Senior brother succeeded. Su Lingxian was taking care of Gorlin. She shouted in happiness when she saw this scene. Unfortunately, Gorlin was unconscious, so he couldn't see this. He really succeeded. Li Rongxue muttered to herself. Wn Feifeng, Dongfang Yu, and the other martial warriors looked up. They seemed to see a glimmer of hope. Even people who had grudges against Wang Ting, like Wn Feiyu and Liu Xinghui, sincerely hoped that Wang Ting would succeed. Once their wish came true, their hearts were filled with gratitude. The shield formed by the earth force dispersed gradually in front of Wang Ting. Wang Ting sat cross-legged in the middle of the array, and there were beads of perspirations on his forehead. His face was slightly pale, but all of this was unable to hide the brightness in his eyes. He looked up and stared at the 8-arms devil general. Their gazes collided in mid-air. Even though he was a general stage presence, Wang Ting was never afraid of him. At this moment, a few dark apparitions who came to kill Wang Ting for 10,000 devil crystals charged towards him while the human martial warriors were in a daze. They wanted to make use of this last chance to kill Wang Ting. Wang Ting had just finished laying a colossal formation. He must be at his weakest now. What were they waiting for? The 8-arms devil general's threat hung over them like the sword of Damocles. Based on his personality, he always meant what he said. If they didn't kill Wang Ting, they would really be turned into candles and lit up every day. Killing Wang Ting was their only path of escape. In a blink of an eye, 3 dark apparitions rushed into the array. Be careful. Lord Yang and the others shouted. They were furious, silently scolding the martial warriors in charge of stopping the dark apparitions for being too careless. How could they let the dark apparitions close in on Wang Ting after he succeeded? Damn it! The human martial warriors were also stunned. They turned and chased after the dark apparitions. However, Wang Ting smiled. With a single thought, the formation started spinning, and flames burst out in the array. The 3 dark apparitions only had time to scream in agony before they got burned into ashes. Lord Yang and the others heaved sighs of relief. The human martial warriors were shocked and hurriedly stopped outside the array. Although they were 6-star soldier-level martial warriors, they didn't dare to touch the array after seeing the dark apparitions dying with no chance of resisting. Please retreat further away, Wang Ting said calmly. The human martial warriors smiled awkwardly. They cupped their fists at Wang Ting to apologize for their carelessness. Then, they retreated far away. The Eight-Arms Devil General felt his eyelids jumping when he saw the dark apparitions burning to cinders. He could feel that the array was life-threatening. He started withdrawing at once. You gave me a spear and asked your men to kill me multiple times. Now, I'll return the favor. Wang Ting glanced at him and spoke indifferently. A smile appeared on his face. You don't have the ability to kill me. The Eight-Arms Devil General smiled hideously. His gaze was full of contempt, but in the depth of his eyes, there was a hint of seriousness. Wang Ting didn't want to reply. He raised his hand and pointed straight at him. The array started spinning violently, gathering the fire force at an astonishing speed. In the end, a fiery red whirlpool formed above Wang Ting's head. The bottom of the vortex was connected to the core of the array. Fire force kept pouring into the array without stopping. Raging flames rose from the middle of the array. They surged to the sky and transformed into a large fire dragon. The dragon raised its head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. Roar. Scorching heat spread through the air, and heat waves blanketed the entire city. This array was known as the Eight Dragons Ablaze Dragon Array. The Eight-Arms Devil General felt the corners of his lips twitching and sped up his retreat. He couldn't handle the array. The Eight-Arms Devil General felt that he was acting like a coward. Still, he tried to convince himself that it was just a strategic retreat. After this round of attack, he would definitely let the brat understand what despair felt like. What a powerful aura! Lord Yang and Principal Yang glanced at each other and quickly flew back. If they were implicated, they might burn their skins. Go! Wang Ting mouthed the word softly. The blazing giant dragon roared to the sky before charging towards the Eight-Arms Devil General. The Eight-Arms Devil General felt a scorching heat closing in on him from behind. He turned to take a look, and his heart jumped in fright. Once his life was on the line, his expression turned grim. A black glow lit up around his body. He clenched the weapon that looked like a blade and a sword and slashed an enormous black crescent in the air. He threw the attack at the giant flaming dragon. Boom! The huge black blade glow slammed furiously into the ablaze dragon, looking as though it was going to chop the dragon in half. A loud explosion shattered the windows below. The giant flaming dragon was cut into two. The Eight-Arms Devil General was elated. However, the next moment, his pupils constricted in shock. The two split flaming bodies merged and charged towards him instantly. In the blink of an eye, he was swallowed whole. The fiery storm devoured the Eight-Arms Devil General, terrifying flames filling up half the sky. Lord Yang and Principal Yang staggered. They had to retreat again. This was the difference between a Master Stage Runemaster and an Advanced Stage Runemaster. Give a Master Stage Runemaster enough time, and he would be able to form an indomitable array. Even General Stage warriors wouldn't dare to face its power. The Eight-Arms Devil General is dead. The people below questioned in disbelief. Even Lord Yang and Principal Yang weren't able to kill the Eight-Arms Devil General together, but Wang Ting was able to force him into a corner with the array. If the Eight-Arms Devil General was dead, this crisis would have ended, right? Unfortunately, at this moment, an angry roar resounded from within the flames, dashing their hopes. A hole was blasted in the sky of fire. A figure glowing with black light darted out. It was the Eight-Arms Devil General. The black glow around him had dimmed a little. There were many burnt marks on his body, and he seemed a little bedraggled. Lord Yang and the others were appalled. This astonishing attack still couldn't kill the Eight-Arms Devil General. He was indeed intimidating, ha ha ha, little human, you can't do anything to me. The Eight-Arms Devil General guffawed. Killing intent appeared in his eyes. Wang Ting had put him in such a precarious position. It was time to retaliate. Really? Wang Ting remained composed. He tilted his head and looked at him. The Eight-Arms Devil General's heart almost leaped out of his chest when he saw Wang Ting's gaze. A bad premonition rose up in his heart. If one blazing dragon isn't enough, what about three? Wang Ting smiled. He hooked his fingers, and the flames erupted again. 3 fiery dragons congregated in the sky. They weren't any smaller than the gigantic flaming dragon at the start. Roar, roar, roar. Flames burned the air as the dragons roared loudly. The 3 huge dragons spiraled above Wang Ting like the stars twinkling around the bright moon. He looked like the son of fire. Chapter 320 The Fear of Being Dominated by Flames. The muscles on the 8-arms Devil General's face twitched furiously as he stared at the 3 blazing dragons in front of him. This is outrageous. How dare you torture me like this? I have my dignity too. You've forced my hand, brat. Let me show you the forbidden skill of our 8-arms devil race. The 8-arms Devil General's expression turned hideous. The moment he finished speaking, a thick purple-black glow oozed out of his skin. His scarlet-red eyes shone brightly. The next moment, all his muscles started squirming, and his height increased. He became bigger and taller, giving people unprecedented pressure. At the same time, the power of his aura increased multiple times. Below his muscles, his veins popped out and throbbed viciously. They looked as though they would burst at any moment. Blood seeped out from the pores all over his body. It looked extremely terrifying. The 8-arms devil race had a forbidden skill that would exhaust their vitality. They would never use it unless they were in a critical condition. A mere 5-star soldier-level martial warrior forced me to use my forbidden skill. You should feel proud, the 8-arms Devil General said in a hoarse voice. No, this is the result of my master and me, as well as all the human martial warriors. Your defeat is just, Wang Tang replied. Chimpage. Ha ha ha, you think that you will win? The 8-arms Devil General let out a peal of laughter laced with contempt. Yes, you will lose today, Wang Tang nodded sincerely and said. The 8-arms Devil General was stunned. He felt that he couldn't communicate with this brat. If he continued, he would die from anger. You didn't lose to me alone. Rather, you lost to the entire human race. The dark apparitions will never understand the unity and fearlessness of the human race. Wang Teng looked at the human martial warriors fighting with the dark apparitions below and smiled emotionally. You're wrong. The human race will perish. The 8-arms Devil General grinned hideously as he also glanced at the battlefield below. Even if the human race perishes, you won't achieve a real victory, Wang Teng replied indifferently. What a joke. Death is the greatest failure. Everything you said is just an excuse for your failure. The 8-arms Devil General sneered. Wang Ting shook his head and remained silent. He felt that the devil couldn't understand what he was saying. Little brat, I hate you. The 8-arms Devil General flared up in anger. He seemed to have suffered great humiliation. He stopped talking nonsense and charged straight at Wang Teng. Wang Ting pointed at it, and the 3 giant dragons soared down. Boom! Scorching flames blazed into the sky. The clouds seemed to be burning, a testament to the array's might. He should be dead now, right? Everyone looked up at the flames in the sky. They were dumbstruck. Roar! An angry cry came from within the flames. The 8-arms Devil General dashed out with a black glow shimmering around his body. There were burnt marks on his body, and he was covered with blood. He uncontrollably vomited a mouthful of blood. He had suffered severe injuries under the array's assault. Everyone was shocked. The power of the 8-arms Devil General was beyond their imagination. Although he was injured, he still had the energy to continue fighting. Was it impossible to kill him? I've already said that you can't kill me. The 8-arms Devil General laughed. Oh, if 3 isn't enough, how about 6? Wang Teng replied in an unconcerned tone. He hooked his finger, and 6 flaming dragons formed in the air, looking down at the 8-arms Devil General. I% and at # and asterisk and #*. The 8-arms Devil General felt his heart was bleeding in frustration. Come, Mr. 8-arms, your fire dragon set meal has arrived. With a wave of Wang Ting's finger, the fire dragons bellowed and shot out. The 8-arms Devil General, Lord Yang, Principal Yang, boom. Frightening flames swept towards the 8-arms Devil General, drowning it in the sea of fire. Cries of agony came from within. No one knew if he was wailing in anger or pain. At that moment, Thick black light exploded from the center of the flame. The eight-arms devil general was still putting up a resistance. Boom! A figure stumbled out in a disheveled state. The devil general's body was drenched in blood, but the ruthlessness in his eyes didn't subside. He charged towards Wang Ting. Die! He slashed his weapons, and the black blade glows enveloped the young man. Be careful! Lord Yang and Principal Yang rushed over hurriedly. They didn't think that the eight-arms devil general would still be alive after Wang Ting used the power of the 6 dragons. He even had the energy to retaliate. You have a strong vitality. Wang Ting shook his head. After his sentence ended, instantly, 8 burning dragons rose into the air, protecting Wang Ting in the center. He wasn't the son of fire now. He was the king of flames. The eight-arms devil general felt suicidal. How was he supposed to fight? Tell me. How can I fight? He turned around and ran away without any hesitation. At the same time, he was furiously cursing in his heart. It felt extremely frustrating. Don't leave. My dear, this is the last time. There aren't any more dragons. You will win if you endure this round, Wang Ting shouted. He seemed to have found his conscience and realized that he was being outrageous. He shouldn't humiliate his opponent, he should give it some hope. It was the eight-arms devil general, after all. As a general stage devil, he needed to show his opponent some respect. Do you think him stupid? Why will I believe a bastard like you? The eight-arms devil general ran away frantically without turning his head. This human young lad was worse than him, a devil. Lord Yang and Principal Yang felt their lips twitching. Where did Gorlin find this disciple? He was wild, cheeky, and shameless. Did Gorlin teach him that? Gorlin seemed to be of a noble character and high prestige, but he was actually a shameless and evil old man under the virtuous exterior. Liu Xinghui and Wn Feiyu suddenly shivered. This was a vicious man they shouldn't offend. They decided that after this battle, if they managed to get out of it alive, they would kneel and apologize to Wang Ting, begging him for forgiveness. Intense and violent flames surged towards the eight-arms devil general from behind. He let out an ear-shattering scream of pain and was engulfed in the fire once again. That day, he experienced the fear of being dominated by flames. Boom! The 8 fire dragons were the ultimate attack of the 8 dragons ablaze dragon array. Its full-fledged attack was extremely terrifying. Lord Yang and Principal Yang wanted to help Wang Ting at first, but they immediately ran far away. This was scary. Indeed, they mustn't provoke a rune master. Which general stage martial warrior would want to have a taste of this attack? Just as the devil general was beating a hasty retreat, a tiger roar came from the west of the city. Thick smoke appeared on the horizon in the distance. A group of men seemed to be charging this way. It was the Crimson Tiger Troop. At the same time, a strange screech came from the west. Thick smoke rose from the ground on that side too. The Black Sparrow Troop was here. The citizens of Yang City cheered loudly after a moment of silence. Reinforcements are here. We are saved. The grounds in the north and south started shaking as more reinforcements arrived. The commotion was huge. This was the reinforcement from the Empire. 3 waves of reinforcements arrived simultaneously. At this moment, a hint of white appeared on the horizon. A faint morning glow lit up the sky. The sun was about to rise. Chapter 321 Seductive. As dawn arrived, the 3 reinforcements from the human race also reached the city. The Crimson Tiger Troop and the Black Sparrow Troop from Earth, as well as the troops of the Empire all, rushed over as soon as possible. The commander of the Dark Apparitions, the Eight-Arms Devil General, was completely outgunned by the formation controlled by Wang Ting. He was submerged in flames, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. The scale of the battle was tilting towards the human race. The morale of the human martial warriors was greatly boosted. They started cheering loudly. Kill! Kill all the dark apparitions and take revenge for our dead friend. We mustn't let them leave. Those that invaded our country must be annihilated. A surge of energy from who knew where burst out from the exhausted bodies of these martial warriors. They raised their weapons high and smashed them at the dark apparition nearest to them. They are finally here. Lord Yang and Principal Yang glanced at each other. They felt relieved. Then, they turned their gazes back at the roaring flames that lit up half the sky. Was the Eight-Arms Devil General dead? Wang Teng looked at the thick smoke coming from 3 different directions. He felt more at ease. Since the reinforcements were here, the danger was almost gone. He retracted his gaze and looked at the burning fire. He frowned uncontrollably. He used his spiritual sight and noticed that the dark force in the flames still existed, even though it was gradually getting fainter. The Eight-Arms Devil General was still alive. His vitality was terrific. Wang Teng couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. He felt helpless, though. Were dark apparitions really so hard to kill? 1 general stage dark apparition was on par with 3 general stage human martial warriors. This was already startling enough. Yet, it was still alive after rounds of formidable attacks. Wang Teng couldn't help but feel powerless. Sigh. Suddenly, a sigh startled everyone. Who is it? Lord Yang and Principal Yang's expressions changed abruptly. Wang Teng's heart also jumped to his throat. He looked towards the source of the sound, and his pupils narrowed. The space beside the flames had started distorting. Then, a graceful figure appeared gradually. It was shimmering in black light and stood beside the flames calmly without any reaction. This was a female dark apparition, and she was gorgeous. Her figure was amazing, sexy, and charming. She had pointed ears and a long tail swaying behind her back. She gave off a seductive aura. Many male martial warriors started salivating involuntarily when they saw the female dark apparition. Even Lord Yang and Principal Yang were no exception. However, they quickly regained their senses. The next second, they turned grave and put up their guards. This dark apparition was able to enchant general stage martial warriors like them. It wasn't a simple figure. Wn Feiyu, Liu Xinghui, Yi Kai-cheng, and the other young men below started blushing when they saw this female dark apparition. They seemed bewitched. Li Rongxue, Su Lingxian, and the other ladies at the side snorted softly. They had to admit that this dark apparition was mesmerizing, but she was a dark apparition. The human race was unable to coexist with the dark apparitions. This was a blood feud. It was humiliating to be captivated by her. Do you like her so much? Wn Feifeng twisted Wn Feiyu's ear and barked. Pain. 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 Sister, let me go. I didn't look at her on purpose. There's something amiss with the dark apparition. I can't control myself, Wan Feiyu shouted. HMPH, men. Wan Feifeng sneered. The icy aura released by the other ladies caused Liu Xinghui and Yi Kai-cheng to tremble. They collected themselves and said with a changed expression, that dark apparition can bewitch others. Don't find an excuse for your weak mentality. You are the only ones getting enchanted by that bitch. Look at Wang Teng. Look at how calm he is. He isn't affected at all. This is how a man should be. The 3 ladies were bound by a common hatred. Wn Feiyu and the other men raised their heads to look at Wang Teng. Indeed, he remained indifferent and didn't seem affected by the beautiful dark apparition at all. His willpower was astonishing. Is he the reincarnation of Liu Xiaohui? The 3 of them thought evilly. 1. Liu Xiaohui is an ancient Chinese character who remained undisturbed even with a woman in his lap. Hence, he is the epitome of a gentleman. Ha ha ha, the beautiful dark apparition in the sky laughed seductively when it noticed the people below getting enchanted by her. Then she immediately noticed that Wang Teng didn't seem affected by her. She asked in surprise, "Young man, am I not pretty?" "Not bad indeed." "I can't say that you're not pretty," Wang Teng replied honestly. "Why aren't you looking at me more then?" The beautiful dark apparition looked as though she was about to tear up. She gave Wang Teng a pitiful look. "Wang Teng, don't get bewitched by her appearance." Lord Yang and Principal Yang reminded him anxiously. They were almost tricked by this beautiful dark apparition, so they still had some lingering fears. In their eyes, if they were unable to withstand the temptation, A young and hot-blooded young man like him wouldn't be able to either. However, Wang Teng wasn't tempted. He said calmly, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in a female dark apparition. Female dark apparition. The beautiful dark apparition stared at Wang Ting in a daze as if she had heard something unbelievable. She was stunned. Lord Yang and Principal Yang widened their eyes in shock. They couldn't help but respect Wang Ting. This young man was daring. Young man, you're indeed cheeky. Aren't you afraid that he'll kill you? The beautiful dark apparition's expression darkened. She glared at Wang Teng indignantly. You can't touch me, Wang Teng replied confidently. Because of that formation? The beautiful dark apparition gave a look of contempt. You must have consumed most of your energy during the fight just now. How much longer can you continue? Our reinforcements will arrive soon. I bet that you will regret it later if you don't leave now, Wang Teng replied. Just as Wang Ting finished speaking, a few powerful auras shot towards them from afar. They would arrive in Yang City soon. These auras belonged to general stage martial warriors. The beautiful dark apparition looked in the distance and turned serious. She said, You're lucky. A long whip suddenly appeared in her hand. She swept it towards the flames and dragged out the body of the Eight-Arms Devil General. Pant, the Eight-Arms Devil General was in a miserable state. He was burnt, and fresh blood covered his entire body. 3 out of his 8 arms were gone. No one knew where they went. Mightis. He glared bitterly at Wang Teng before saying to the beautiful dark apparition beside him, Why are you here? My dear idiot Zers, you would have been killed if I didn't come. The beautiful dark apparition smiled gently. Don't you find it humiliating to get beaten up so badly by this young human? Shut up. Zers turned furious from embarrassment. He was so angry that he vomited blood. Chapter 322 Titan Arm. The beautiful dark apparition disregarded the anger of the Eight-Arms Devil General and continued reprimanding it. Zers, you failed your mission. The Master will be furious. The Eight-Arms Devil General's expression changed. However, he forcefully calmed down and scoffed. That's none of your business. I'll receive my punishment voluntarily. Not bad, you're smart. I hope that you won't cry and look for your mummy. Mightis covered her mouth and chuckled. The veins on Zerz's forehead started bulging. He was bursting with anger, but he had to bear with it because he couldn't beat Mightis. He stopped talking to her altogether. Mightis pouted her lips. She placed her hand in front of her eyes and looked afar. Sigh, they are coming. A few general stage auras were closing in at high speed. The frightening auras swept towards them like an enormous wave. Zers finally noticed them, and his expression underwent a huge change. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Oh, I forgot. Mightis smiled beautifully. Zers felt helpless. Mightis laughed happily when she saw Zerz's expression. But, the next instant, she was unable to smile because of a voice she heard. Mightis, long time no see. Mightis' smile froze immediately, and a vicious look appeared in her eyes. She looked in the direction where the voice came from. She gritted her teeth as she squeezed out 2 words. It's you. A few general stage forces of presence appeared above Yang City. Every single presence was extremely powerful. They were all general stage martial warriors, the top tier of the general stage martial warriors. One of the martial warriors spoke to Mightis calmly. You were lucky and managed to escape in the past. How dare you visit the human race again? Dan Taixian, do you think that I'm afraid of you? Mightis looked at the lady who was of equal beauty to her as she said in a cold voice. You will stay here today, Dan Taixian said indifferently. She seemed to be stating a common fact rather than killing a powerful general stage dark apparition. Mightis got stimulated by her tone and trembled in anger. Master. Wang Ting called out at this moment. Without a doubt, this was his master, Dan Taixian. After all, there was only one Dan Taixian in the world. Dan Taixian turned and glanced at the formation below Wang Ting. She smiled. Impressive. She had obviously noticed that this array was a threat to general stage warriors. Although she was confused and puzzled about how Wang Ting managed to form this array, she still felt proud of him. As his master, she was naturally happy when her disciple was outstanding. But the other general stage martial warrior didn't seem to be in a good mood. His face even seemed a little black. This was the chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop, Xiao Nanfeng. Wang Ting had some grudges with the Crimson Tiger Troop in the past. Dan Taixien had disregarded his position as the chief commander and beat him up to take revenge for Wang Ting. Xiao Nanfeng was full of resentment when he thought of this. He couldn't find a way to vent his frustration. "Why are you everywhere?" Xiao Nanfeng said with disdain. He didn't bother treating Wang Ting politely. "Xiao Nanfeng, are you asking for a beating?" Dan Taixien glanced at him and said coldly. Xiao Nanfeng felt his lips twitching. Despite keeping quiet, he had already cursed Dan Taixien multiple times in his heart. "This crazy bitch. Thank you for coming to help, but this isn't the time for a conversation. Should we kill the dark apparitions first?" Another general stage martial warrior felt a little speechless. "General Shen." Lord Yang and Principal Yang came over. "Lord Yang." Shen Tuxiong cupped his fists at Lord Yang. Then, he nodded at Principal Yang and continued, "I'm sorry that we came late. Are you all right?" "We are fine. Thanks to this young man, we almost killed that 8-arms devil general. Unfortunately, he was still saved," Lord Yang and Principal Yang replied. Shen Tuxiong had already noticed the impressive array below Wang Ting. When he heard Lord Yang and Principal Yang admitting it, a tinge of surprise flashed past his eyes. He nodded. "Let's save the courtesies for later. The most important thing now is to kill these 2 dark apparitions." "Ha ha ha." Mitis suddenly laughed out loud. "You want to kill us? In your dreams. How will we know if we don't try?" Dan Taixien scoffed. She rushed towards Mitis and Zers. Xiao Nanfeng and the others started moving too. They surrounded Mitis and Zers and prepared to slaughter them in this land. Mitis remained calm, though. She raised her head to look at the pitch-black dimensional rift above it. Boom! A loud explosion occurred suddenly. An enormous arm forcefully squeezed out from the dimensional rift and grabbed at Dan Taixien and the other martial warriors. The arm was like a celestial pillar. It peeked out of one end of the dimensional rift and filled up the entire sky. When its skin rubbed against the edge of the dimensional rift, the sound of glass breaking could be heard. Space fragments dropped from the sky. "Damn it!" Xiao Nanfeng and Shen Tuxing's expressions changed. Their hearts palpitated frantically. They could sense a massive threat from this arm. "Combine forces." Dan Taixuan's gaze flickered as she shouted in a low voice. Boom! The general stage martial warriors acted at the same time. Dan Taixien used her sword to create a magnificent sword glow. Her sword aura slashed through the air, turning into a tornado as it swept across the sky. Xiao Nanfeng's weapon was a battle blade. Blade glow surged out, wanted to chop everything in its path. The aura was scorching. Shen Tuxiong held his battle maces and started slamming them continuously. Lightning flickered, and thunder roared. Boom! Thick bolts of lightning shot out from the battle maces and flew towards the Titan's arm. The other general stage martial warriors also executed their most powerful attacks and aimed them at the Titan's arm. Boom! The powerful attacks landed on the Titan's arm one after another. Wang Ting activated the formation to its maximum potential. He used his last ounce of strength to call out 8 flaming dragons and hurled them towards the giant arm. Fire engulfed the arm, and it was set ablaze. The Titan's arm finally paused for a second after it suffered so many attacks. Cuts started appearing on it. But soon, it moved forward again. It opened its gigantic palm, wanting to grab the people below. "Retreat!" Xiao Nanfeng and the others squinted and scattered immediately. The Titan's arm was too powerful. They were unable to stop it even when they combined forces. However, it was stuck in the dimensional rift, so its movement was limited. It wasn't able to capture the human martial warriors who ran away. It grabbed Zers and Mitis instead and went back to the other world on the other end of the dimensional rift. "Young human brat, I'll remember you. Your death will come the next time we meet. Zerz's voice came from the dimensional rift. Then, the dimensional rift started shrinking as though it lost its support. It gradually disappeared. Chapter 323 8th-level Devil Scripture. Zerz's voice echoed out from the dimensional rift. It was filled with bitterness and hatred, as if Wang Ting had done something indescribable to it. Everyone looked at Wang Ting strangely. How much did the 8-arms Devil General hate him? He didn't pinpoint any of the general stage martial warriors, but he called out Wang Ting's name. Wang Ting cursed in his heart. What grudges do we have? What hatred do we have? Do you have to remember it so clearly? How narrow-minded. Although the other party was a general stage devil warrior, he didn't have the bearing of one. Wang Ting put on an innocent expression, but he felt helpless in his heart. If he had a choice, he would kill the 8-arms Devil General right here, leaving no chance for his revival. He wouldn't let him leave with a grudge. My idiot disciple, how does it feel to be remembered by a general stage warrior? Dan Taixian came beside Wang Ting and placed her hand on his arm. She smiled at him cheekily. Xiao Nanfeng glanced at him happily. He was laughing at Wang Ting's plight. He deserved it. Aren't you a capable young man? Let me see how many days of sleep you can get when you get remembered by a general stage warrior. This was the first time Shen Tuxiong saw Wang Ting, so he didn't understand this young man. But he felt a little unreal when he heard the others talking about how Wang Ting used the array to torment the 8-arms Devil General. He felt sympathy towards this young man. After all, he completed the array after Gorlin finished most of it. If he was to do it himself, he might not be able to create it successfully. Also, Wang Ting's ability was too low. He was a nobody when compared to the general stage warriors. He would be in trouble if he met the 8-arms Devil General again. Yet Wang Ting remained calm and replied, "Nothing. If I meet him again, he might still get tormented by me." The general stage martial warriors all stared at Wang Ting. This young man was bold. "You're daring. Aren't you afraid that your tongue will get twisted?" Xiao Nanfeng smiled and mocked him. "Haha, there's nothing wrong with a young man being confident." Shen Tuxiong smiled, feeling a little surprised. Dan Taixian glanced at Xiao Nanfeng before patting Wang Ting's shoulder. She said in a meaningful tone, "Good aspiration. Kill that 8-armed Zerz and prove to someone that you can do it." "Yes." Wang Ting nodded firmly. He didn't even look at Xiao Nanfeng. Xiao Nanfeng's eyebrows jumped. He felt frustrated, and there seemed to be a mountain pressing down on his heart. "Kill." Sharp bellows sounded below them. The reinforcements finally arrived in Yang City. They immediately started fighting with the remaining dark apparitions. The Titan's arm had only saved Zerz and Mitis. The rest of the dark apparitions were left behind. The dimensional rift in the sky closed up quickly. Some dark apparitions flew towards the dimensional rift when they saw the 8-arms Devil General leaving. Their expressions changed when they saw the large number of reinforcements charging towards them fiercely. They increased their speed, wishing they had an extra pair of legs. "Where are you going?" Lord Yang, Shen Tuxiong, and the other general stage martial warriors blocked these dark apparitions with grim faces. The human race had suffered huge losses. How could they allow these dark apparitions to leave? They must let them stay in Yang City and accompany their dead friends in hell. The soldier-level dark apparitions were nothing in front of the general stage martial warriors. The distance was like a chasm, and it was impossible to overcome. "No." The high-level dark apparitions screamed as they saw the dimensional rift disappearing entirely. They were filled with despair. These high-level dark apparitions were unable to resist the attacks of the general stage martial warriors. One attack, and they were killed on the spot. They were smashed into minced meat and fell from the sky. Boom. Then, they joined the battle below. Huge numbers of dark apparitions were annihilated in a matter of seconds. Wang Ting stood in the sky and scanned his surroundings. The astonishing number of attribute bubbles dazzled his eyes. "I can finally pick up the attributes." Wang Ting heaved a long sigh. He was exhausted, But he still felt invigorated when he saw so many attribute bubbles. He pulled them over with his spiritual power. He picked them up. Space *230 space *180 space *310. The appearance of the Titan's arm had squeezed the dimensional rift and destroyed it. Hence, a large number of space fragments dropped and turned into space attributes. Wang Ting picked all of them up. It was a huge gain. Space 2310 10,000. Wang Ting looked at the change in his space attribute on the attributes panel and smiled brightly. His space talent rose by close to a quarter. This was a huge step forward. He felt that he had grown more sensitive to space and could easily use certain spatial skills. This might become his biggest trump card in the future. After Wang Ting finished collecting the space attributes, his eyes shone as he looked for the attribute bubbles dropped by the 8-Arms Devil General. The 8-Arms Devil General had the highest cultivation out of all the dark apparitions. Thus, the attributes he dropped would exceed everyone present. He looked towards the spot where he attacked the 8-Arms Devil General. As expected, he saw a few huge attribute bubbles floating there. Dark Force *450 Dark Force *360 Advanced Stage Dark Talent *38 Level Devil Scripture *1 Dark Force *410. A few attribute bubbles were starting to turn transparent. Wang Ting quickly picked them up. His eyes widened. This was a huge surprise. As expected of a general stage devil warrior. The attributes it dropped were amazing. His Dark Force was only at the 3-star soldier level, but it was soaring to newer heights now. He had already picked up some Dark Force earlier during the battle, so it broke through the 4-star level and went to the 5-star soldier level directly before stopping. The attributes dropped from 8-Arms Devil General were enough for him to rise 2 stages. Dark Force 433 3000, 5-star. There were also the Advanced Stage Dark Talent and the 8-level Devil Scripture. Before this, Wang Ting only had the Intermediate Stage Dark Talent. After rising to the Advanced Stage, his sensitivity to the Dark Force around him increased, and he was able to suck more Dark Force for his cultivation. He could also convert it easily and use it to raise his cultivation. As for the 8-level Devil Scripture, a huge and muscular figure with 8 arms appeared in Wang Ting's mind after he picked up the attribute bubble. It looked similar to the 8-Arms Devil General, Zer's, but its face was blurred. Although the figure's body was an outline of light, the arteries on its body could be seen clearly. Small light dots were seen along the arteries. These were the acupoints. The figure sat cross-legged and started executing the skill. It was cultivating. These images in Wang Ting's mind allowed him to understand the 8-level Devil Scripture immediately. Skyrank Scripture. Wang Ting's eyes shone brightly. This was an unexpected surprise. The cultivation of Skyrank Scriptures was extremely fast, and they had special abilities. The 8-level Devil Scripture helped in training one's physical body. The cultivator would have an impressive battle ability once he mastered it. People with the same cultivation as him wouldn't be his match. This 8-level Devil Scripture was the main reason why the 8-Arms Devil General was so powerful. Chapter 324. A full harvest. But it hadn't ended. Although this 8-level Devil Scripture is the Devil Race's scripture, it's still alright. Wang Tung's eyes glittered. He quickly accepted the background of this scripture. He was different from others. Other people didn't have dark talent, so they weren't able to practice the 8-level Devil Scripture. If they wanted to possess the dark talent, they needed to convert using special methods. Yarrow Hongsho was an example. That guy had almost turned into a devil. However, even then, there was a huge price to pay, and it wasn't perfect. A half-human half-apparition state was the furthest one could go. Most of these converters would lose their conscience and turn into slaves of the dark. They would become low-level dark apparitions, killing tools for other devils. As for Wang Teng, he had used the system to gain his dark talent, so it became his innate ability. There were no adverse effects at all. Those semi-finished products couldn't be spoken in the same breath as him. Furthermore, he had also gained the 8-Arms Devil General's advanced stage dark talent. He was more powerful than many other high-level dark apparitions. Even among the dark apparitions, he was an outstanding talent. Thus, He could practice this 8-level devil scripture without worrying about the repercussions. This was the extraordinary life of a bug. Wang Ting's pupils moved and scanned the entire place. There were many attribute bubbles, big and small, floating around Yang City. It was a grand, unforgettable sight. Unfortunately, he was the only one who could see this scene. It was time to showcase his collecting ability. He released his spiritual power and swept the entire city. The attribute bubbles floated towards him like beauties rushing into his arms. It felt refreshing. Fire Force *12 Earth Force *20 Dark Force *6 Enlightenment *10 Spirit *8 Advanced Stage Fire Talent *21 Advanced Stage Fire Talent. One particular attribute bubble caught Wang Ting's attention. His fire talent became the second talent to rise to the advanced stage, following closely behind his dark talent. He instantly felt the dark force swimming towards him like little tadpoles looking for their mother. Oh wait, he meant swimming towards their father. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to experience this. Most of the other attributes he collected were the standard 5-element attributes, enlightenment, and spirit. Of course, dark force took up the main bulk of his collection. The invasion of dark apparitions meant that many dark apparitions were killed by the human martial warriors. Thus, a large number of dark force attributes were left behind. Wang Ting collected the fruits of everyone's labor with glee. He had broken through the 5-star soldier level recently, but now, his dark force rose and reached 6-star soldier level. Dark force, 34,000, 6-star, his 5 elements increased tremendously too. He had already collected many attributes before this. Including the massive gains in this round, all his 5 elements entered the 6-star soldier level. Metal force, 28,000, 6-star, wood force, 31,000, 6-star, water force, 63,000, 6-star, fire force, 64,000, 6-star, earth force, 35,000, 6-star, they had all risen to the 6-star soldier level. But there were still many bubbles uncollected. It would grow even higher later. Even so, Wang Ting wasn't that happy. This was the first time he had witnessed the battle between the human race and the dark apparitions. Death was always present in a war. It was true that many dark apparitions had died, but a similar, or maybe even more, number of human martial warriors were sacrificed too. If the reinforcements hadn't arrived in time, the martial warriors of Yang City would have all perished. This price was a little too much. It weighed down his heart. He sighed and didn't want to think about it anymore. The only way to ensure that this tragedy wouldn't happen again was to improve his skills so that he could be more useful in future battles. He continued picking up the bubbles. Dark Force *32 Shadow Assassin Sword Skill *1 Wang Ting's eyes lit up when he saw a battle technique bubble. Shadow Assassin Sword Skill. As the bubble merged into his body, a shadow appeared in his mind and started showcasing the sword skill. This was a sword skill with fierce killing intent. Once employed, only lingering shadows would be visible to the onlookers. The movements were unpredictable, making it hard for the opponent to gauge which was authentic and which wasn't. The Shadow Assassin Sword Skill was an Earth-rank intermediate stage battle technique. Normal martial warriors couldn't afford to buy an Earth-rank intermediate stage battle technique even if they sold their kidneys. Wang Ting sighed. A man could not get rich without a windfall. He had received the 8-level devil scripture just a moment ago. This Shadow Assassin Sword Skill might only be an Earth-rank, but he was already satisfied. A poor person would still pick up a $100 note even if he had found a 10,000 note a while ago. We couldn't be a wastrel. However, why is this another dark apparition battle technique? All it lacked was a note at the end of this battle technique more powerful when you use it with dark force. Am I going to sink into the darkness from now on? You're making life difficult for me, Wang Ting complained helplessly. Even so, he didn't slow down his speed of picking up the attributes. After all, there were so many bubbles on the battlefield. If he was careless, they might disappear. Wasting 1 second meant losing a few billion. Who could afford to do that? Emperor Realm Enlightenment *12 Ape King Fist *1 Ape King Fist Conscious *20 Emperor Realm Enlightenment, Ape King Fist, and Ape King Fist Conscious. Wang Ting was stunned for a moment before he felt elated. Emperor Realm Enlightenment was a rare attribute. The person who dropped it must be a top-class genius. On top of that, 12 points of Emperor Realm Enlightenment were a lot. Then, there was the Ape King Fist. An Earth-rank advanced stage battle technique. Another Earth-rank battle technique. Besides this, there was another rarer attribute. Fist conscious. It was conscious, not presence. The force was even more terrifying after the jump in level. A martial warrior who had enlightened his presence was able to defeat a martial warrior at the same stage easily. However, a martial warrior who had comprehended his conscious was able to crush a similar realm martial warrior who had enlightened his presence. As the Ape King Fist conscious entered his body, Wang Ting was in a daze for a second. Then, he immediately understood everything related to the skill. A frightening Ape King appeared in his mind. It was enormous, and it seemed to be holding the sky as it walked in the forest. Suddenly, a tall mountain blocked its path. The giant ape didn't go round the mountain. Instead, it lowered its gaze slightly and threw out a punch. Boom! The towering mountain exploded into rocks. The giant ape stepped over the mountain without turning its head. It walked ahead and disappeared among the mountains. This was the Ape King Fist conscious. Wang Ting was thunderstruck. How appalling was this power? He couldn't imagine it at all. If someone had to receive this punch, he might turn into a pile of minced meat. At least from what Wang Ting understood, if he executed this skill with his current ability, a normal 7-star soldier-level martial warrior might not be able to withstand it. King impressive. These were the only 2 words that could describe it. Chapter 325 Mother Earth is buying time for her poor kids. There were too many attribute bubbles, so Wang Ting didn't know where to look. He even found it a little difficult to pick them all up. Damn it, he couldn't collect all of them in time. Was this even possible? This was his first time witnessing such a large number of attribute bubbles. He never saw so many attribute bubbles in Jisin Martial House, Huanghai Military Academy, and even Yang City Academy. One could imagine how many attribute bubbles there were, waiting for him to pick up. Just thinking about it made him hopeless. Many bubbles disappeared without him noticing. This was too cruel. It was right in front of him, but after 1 or 2 seconds, it was gone. It disappeared without a trace, as if it had never existed. The area where the bubble existed a moment ago felt like an expressionless face, mocking him cold-heartedly. You can't pick me, you can't pick me. You can't pick me bleh. Sticking out tongue, Wang Ting had to increase his speed. He tried his best to pick those bigger and darker attribute bubbles first. Based on the system's rules so far, the greater the number of attributes, the bigger the bubble. The darker the bubble, the higher the grade of the attribute. Wang Ting picked the bubbles attentively. He executed his spiritual power to the maximum and scanned the entire city, leaving no corners untouched. He would collect everything first and count them after he went back. The battle below had almost ended. The arrival of the reinforcements and the general stage martial warriors turned the tides around for the humans. The dark apparitions were almost completely annihilated. As far as the eyes could see, the entire young city was covered with wounds and scars. A victory should be celebrated, but there were no cheers or joy. The city was immersed in sorrow and dead silence. Too many people had died in the span of a single night. More than 60% of the martial warriors in Yang City were killed during this war. Many martial warriors were weary and seriously injured. They kneeled on the ground and burst into tears. When the battle ended, the civilians hiding in the emergency shelters walked out and looked at their hometown in ruins. They couldn't believe it. Tears welled up their eyes and flowed down their cheeks. The ground was soaked with blood, and corpses were everywhere. This scene stung their eyes. While shedding tears, they searched for their families frantically. The lucky ones found their families, while others could only cry bitterly as they hugged their family members' bodies. 2402:800:6118 AAA7 F1BD 7A95:3B1D. Bad cries of sorrow and wails of agony resounded in the city, making the scene even more tragic. Yes, they had won the battle, but their family would never come back. What a painful truth. Wang Ting stood on the city wall as he gazed at the city. Lord Yang, Shen Tuxiong, Dan Taixian, and the other martial warriors were also beside him. They didn't have any expressions on their faces as they watched the scenes unfolding below. However, if one looked closely, one could see the ripples of emotions in the depth of their gazes. They were general stage martial warriors who had experienced many tragic battles. But they couldn't remain indifferent even after witnessing all the deaths and separations. Life was meant to be respected. Is this what a war is? Wang Ting felt emotional in his heart. This was what the martial warriors had to face. They were exposed to dangers and deaths all the time. They didn't do it for themselves. They were doing it for their families. Zooming out, they were doing it for the entire race. It was at this moment that Wang Ting finally understood what martial warriors really meant. They weren't just a powerful presence. No, they were also the strongest shield and the sharpest spear guarding and protecting their race. As long as the shield didn't break, as long as the spear remained intact, the human race could live in peace and prosperity. To the great martial warriors, Dan Taixian looked at the absent-minded Wang Ting and asked him softly, "What are you thinking?" In wondering what will happen if there is a similar large-scale dark apparition invasion on Earth, Wang Ting replied. In just a few seconds, he had thought of many things. Since the Xingwu continent could get attacked by the dark apparitions, he had reasons to believe that they could appear on Earth too. He remembered the large numbers of martial warriors stationed in the Xingwu continent all year round. One of the main reasons why the Xingwu continent chose to be at peace with Earth was so that they could resist the dark apparitions together. It won't happen for now, Dan Taixian said. It's just temporary. Wang Ting understood the hidden meaning in Dan Taixuan's answer. He asked, "How much time do we have left?" Dan Taixian looked at Wang Ting in surprise. She didn't expect him to pinpoint the main issue so quickly. She hesitated before replying to him. 2 to 3 years. She paused for a moment before continuing. At that time, the situation on Earth might be worse than the Xingwu continent. After all, there's too little time for us to prepare. Our history isn't as strong and long as the Xingwu continent. So fast. Wang Ting took a deep breath, feeling a chill running through his spine. He clenched his fists uncontrollably. Why? Dan Taixian was in a dilemma again. At this moment, Xiao Nanfeng opened his mouth. Tell him. He has already seen the war, and he isn't weak either. He will get in touch with such matters sooner or later. Tell him earlier so that he can have time to prepare himself mentally. Dan Taixuan's gaze shimmered. She glanced at Xiao Nanfeng. Why are you looking at me? I'm only reminding you because we are both from the human race on Earth, Xiao Nanfeng scoffed and turned his head. He couldn't maintain his calm exterior. Dan Taixian pouted. She organized her speech and said to Wang Ting, "It's because of the dimensional rift. Based on our investigation, more and more dimensional rifts are starting to appear on Earth, and the frequency is getting shorter. Our dimensional rifts are only connected to the Xingwu continent, but for some reason, the people from the Xingwu continent aren't able to travel to Earth through these rifts. Hence, the dark apparitions can't reach our world using the Xingwu continent as the springboard. However, once the dimensional rifts on Earth hit a certain number, the space of Earth will get extremely weak. The dark apparitions will definitely grab this chance to invade us." Wang Ting's expression was grim. He felt a little heavy-hearted as he asked, "Why can't the citizens of the Xingwu continent travel to Earth? This question has been bothering me for some time. Some people say that it's Earth rejecting them with its will." Dan Taixian hesitated before she replied slowly. "Earth's will is rejecting them?" Wang Ting was shocked. This thought had emerged in his mind before, but he found it atrocious. Yet, when Dan Taixian said it personally, he didn't know how to react. "Are you sure you're not joking?" he asked. "This is a viewpoint raised by the experts in the study of space theory. Who do you want me to ask?" Dan Taixian rolled her eyes and replied helplessly. "All right, the experts make sense." Wang Ting shrugged, saying half-jokingly, That means that our Mother Earth is buying time for her poor kid. Dan Taixian was stunned for a moment before replying with a complicated expression. That's an appropriate analogy. Wang Ting asked again, did those experts find the reason for the appearance of the dimensional rifts? The collision of worlds. These words spurted out of Dan Taixian's mouth uncontrollably. She then explained, 30 years ago, one of the worlds collided with Earth and wanted to merge with it. That world was the Xingwu continent. That is what caused the changes on Earth and the arrival of the martial arts era. Collision, merger. Wang Ting finally got hold of the sequence of events. His understanding of the world collapsed completely. Chapter 326. Xiao Nanfeng picked up a huge rock. Wang Ting learned many secrets of the two worlds from Dan Taixian. These pieces of news were unavailable to ordinary people and warriors. It wasn't because they wanted to hide the truth. If the news was made public, imagine the chaos that would ensue. All the nations used a milder method to let their people accept the arrival of the martial arts era. At the same time, they gradually let them understand the underlying dangers. These thoughts spun in Wang Ting's mind. He asked again, will Earth and Xingwu continent merge in 2 to 3 years? The merger of two worlds would be a fascinating sight. Of course not. The merger of the worlds isn't so simple. However, in 2 to 3 years, Earths won't be able to hold Xingwu continent at bay. It would also mark the dawn of the dark apparitions. At that time, chaos will erupt, Dan Taixian replied. Wang Ting nodded to show that he understood. Then, he slapped his forehead. He felt that it was better not to know these secrets. Once he learned them, he got a headache. You don't have to think too much. If the sky falls, the giants will hold it up. If the giants can't do it, there's no use worrying, Dan Taixian said. She seemed to have seen through his thoughts. You're right. Wang Ting froze for a moment before regaining his composure. He laughed out loud. This was the truth. How could he save the world alone? At this moment, Lord Yang, Shen Tuxiong, and the others walked over. Shen Tuxiong smiled and introduced, these two are the chief commanders of the troops stationed in Xingwu continent. This is Commander Xiao Nanfeng from the Crimson Tiger Troop and Commander Dan Taixian from the Black Sparrow Troop. Then, he introduced Lord Yang and Principal Yang to Dan Taixian and Xiao Nanfeng. I've long heard of you. Thank you for traveling the distance to reinforce Yang City. Lord Yang thanked them sincerely. You're too polite. This is what we should do, Dan Taixian said. Earth and Xingwu continent offer mutual help and protection. Please don't regard us as outsiders, Xiao Nanfeng replied. Yes, you're right. It's my mistake. Lord Yang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yang City must have suffered huge losses from this invasion. Dan Taixian looked at the scene below the walls and sighed. Yes. Lord Yang, Principal Yang, and Shen Tuxiong's expressions also turned sorrowful. Speaking about it, we have to thank Wang Ting for standing up before you came. If not, Yang City would have been in a worse state, Principal Yang suddenly said. Wang Ting was listening quietly at the side when he suddenly got mentioned. He was in a daze. Wang Ting can be considered a peerless genius. I'm afraid that in our Xingwu continent, there might only be 2 or 3 youths who can rival him, Lord Yang commented. I've never seen such a genius in my many years in the education industry, Principal Yang said. Dan Taixian was startled. She didn't expect these two figures to have such high praises for Wang Ting. She smiled proudly and replied, haha, my disciple might be a good-for-nothing most of the time, but has still reliable during crucial moments. Wang Ting rolled his eyes. You can just praise me without mocking me. What do you mean by good-for-nothing? Am I that kind of person? What a joke. Ordinary people might misunderstand me, but you? How can you do that? This is extremely disappointing. Xiao Nanfeng glanced at Wang Ting involuntarily. He felt that this young man did have some capabilities. No wonder Dan Taixian, who never had a disciple for so many years, took him in. However, he couldn't help but rebuke when he heard Dan Taixian's proud tone. There are many outstanding talents in the younger generation and many more who haven't matured yet. It's too early to say this. Dan Taixian glanced at him. Xiao Nanfeng, I remember your disciple is going to participate in the national #1 martial arts competition this year, right? Why don't my good-for-nothing disciple compete with your disciple? Since you want to compete, let's have them compete. A glint appeared in Xiao Nanfeng's eyes. He rolled with the flow and agreed to Dan Taixian. He hadn't vented his anger from the torment Dan Taixian gave him in the past. However, he couldn't lay his hands on Wang Ting as he was one of the younger generation. It was a good idea to release his frustration by letting his disciple beat Wang Ting up during the competition. It was reasonable and logical. No fault could be found. I must remind that young fellow when I go back. I'll tell him to give it his all and let Wang Ting have a taste of despair. Xiao Nanfeng thought to himself secretly. He admitted that he couldn't beat Dan Taixian, but he was confident if they were to compare their disciples. Wang Ting had reached the 5-star soldier level and had some accomplishments in rune studies. However, he felt that his disciple was stronger than Wang Ting. After all, his disciple had slaughtered his way through the battlefield for many years. He was different from normal martial warriors. He had even reached, ha ha ha. Xiao Nanfeng thought of something happy and smiled uncontrollably. Dan Taixian snorted. She remained indifferent and asked Wang Ting in a meaningful tone, "Are you confident? Master, you want me to take part in the national #1 martial arts competition?" Wang Ting asked in surprise. He had heard of this competition when he was in school. It was open to all young martial warriors 30 years and below. Typically, only the 4th-year students would participate in the competition. The others didn't have the capability, so participating would be an embarrassment. But it wasn't strange that his master had asked him to attend it. He was strong enough. "Why? You don't want to go?" Dan Taixian asked. "That's not it. I thought that you would wait until I'm in the 4th year before you released me to amaze the world by taking the 1st place in one go." Wang Ting sniggered. "There are no surprises if you take that path. Time is precious for a genius. You have already moved far ahead of everyone. What you need to do is to maintain this distance and widen it continuously. That is the only way you can ensure you keep getting stronger," Dan Taixian said. "As for the 1st place, since you're competing, you should have the mentality of fighting for #1. Have you forgotten what I've told you before?" Wang Ting was stunned. He instantly remembered the words Dan Taixian had said to him. The formidable path. This wasn't an easy path. But he wasn't afraid. "You're my master. Your words are my command." Wang Ting remained indifferent. He had the confidence that he would lead the crowd. In fact, this was what he planned to do even without Dan Taixian's reminder. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I was a little curious just now. Is Wang Ting your disciple?" Lord Yang asked in astonishment. "Is there a problem?" Dan Taixian asked. Wang Ting just acknowledged the president of our Rune Society, President Gorlin, as his master. "I didn't know that he's your disciple, too, so I'm a little surprised," Lord Yang said emotionally. Wang Ting was an amazing child. Both his masters were well-known characters. "It's all right. I only teach him martial arts. He can acknowledge any masters in other fields. However, I need to see this Master Gorlin. I have to thank him for taking care of my disciple," Dan Taixian said. "How is Master?" Wang Ting asked hurriedly. The president of the Alchemist Society went to help him. "There shouldn't be any problem," Lord Yang replied. Chapter 327 Are You Really My Master? Oh, the president of the Alchemist Society came personally? Wang Ting secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. The president of the Alchemist Society was a master alchemist. With him around, it should be fine. Gorlin kept the poisonous snake, so Master Ogu used its gallbladder to make the antidote. "Gorlin will probably wake up soon," Lord Yang said. "Let me visit him." Wang Ting was still worried. "Let's go together," Dan Taixian said. Lord Yang and Principal Yang nodded. They all went to the Alchemist Society. Gorlin was inside, and there were many alchemists taking care of him. An ordinary person wouldn't receive such treatment. "Oh right, is my friend here too?" Wang Ting asked. "Yes. He suffered greatly, but fortunately, he's still alive. He will recover completely after some treatment. Lord Yang nodded. He knew that Wang Ting was referring to Yarrow Hongsha's hostage, Lin Zhon. Thank you. Wang Ting sighed in relief again. He couldn't take care of Lin Zhon because of the dark apparition's invasion. He was anxious for him. Luckily, he was fine. If not, Wang Ting would feel guilty for life. He wondered what happened to the other members of the Tiger Warrior team. Although he felt uneasy, he still followed everyone into Gorlin's room. They lightened their footsteps as they walked into the room. But Gorlin was already awake. He was drinking water with Su Lingxuan's help. He seemed to be in a stable condition. When he saw them coming in, he pushed himself up and asked, "Why are you here? How's the situation outside?" "Master, careful." Su Lingxian hurriedly held him up. "Don't worry. The reinforcements have arrived. Besides the 8 Arms Devil General who escaped, the other dark apparitions have all been killed. However, we suffered a huge loss." Lord Yang introduced Dan Taixian and Xiao Nanfeng. He especially pointed out that Dan Taixian was Wang Ting's martial arts master. "Pardon me for not being able to get up." Gorlin nodded to show his regards. Then, he looked at Dan Taixian and said, "I've long heard of you. Wang Ting also mentioned you before. You're as charming and beautiful as he said." "Really? This brat said good things about me behind my back. This is embarrassing. Calling me charming and beautiful is too much." Dan Taishuan laughed heartily when she heard Gorlin's compliments. Gorlin, Wang Teng, Su Lingxian, Xiao Nanfeng, Lord Yang. This was the first time Su Lingxian had seen Dan Taixian. She was stunned by her beauty, but when she heard Dan Taixuan's reply and her ear-shattering laugh, the expression on her face froze. She finally knew where Wang Teng learned his indecency from. "Ch, like master, like disciple." The edge of Gorlin's lips twitched. He smiled awkwardly and changed the topic. Pointing at Su Lingxian, he introduced her. "This is my other disciple, Su Lingxian." "What a beautiful young lady." Dan Taixuan's eyes lit up. She came closer and pinched Su Lingxuan's face, feeling a little depressed after her exclamation. "Your skin is so smooth. It's good to be young, unlike me." Su Lingxian was overwhelmed when her face got pinched. She took some time to regain her composure. She laughed awkwardly and said, "Sister Dan, you don't look old at all. You're so young." Wang Teng felt his lips trembling. Sister Dan? His junior sister pulled down his status by a generation. What plans does this little girl have up her sleeve? Haha, little Lingxuan's mouth is really sweet. Dan Taixian was elated. Wang Teng went speechless. No matter how powerful a lady was, she was still a lady. A lady would always believe these words. Just like how they believed their stomach would get smaller when they rubbed it and their chest would get larger. This was the mind God gave them. Are you amazed? Come, you're Wang Ting's junior sister, right? This is the first time we're meeting. I didn't bring gifts with me, but this is something I received recently. Let me give it to you as my welcome present. A necklace appeared in Dan Taixuan's hand. She stuffed it in Su Lingxuan's palm immediately. "This is," Su Lingxian looked at the gift. This wasn't an ordinary necklace, it was elegant and extravagant. There were runes carved on it too. This was a rare defense item. Even though her family was wealthy and she was a rune master herself, she hadn't seen such a beautiful item before. Wang Ting's master was too generous. She would accept it if it was an ordinary gift, but this, I can't accept this. It's too valuable. Su Lingxian declined hurriedly. Take it. It's useless to me. It will only collect dust in my place. Take it, Dan Taixian smiled and said. Since Miss Dan is giving it to you, you can accept it, Gorlin said. Okay. Thank you, Sister Dan. Su Lingxian finally took the gift. Her eyes were twinkling with happiness. I planned to leave this necklace for my disciple's wife in the future. However, looking at him, I think he will remain single for life. Hence, I decided to give it to you, Dan Taixian lamented. Wang Teng, single for life? What kind of cruel curse is this? Are you really my master? You must be a fake. Su Lingxian. She felt that she was tricked by the other party. Was it too late to return the gift? Su Lingxian was already on the brink of tears. Dan Taixian was treating her like Wang Ting's spare tire. Who wants to be his wife? Although this fellow was strong and handsome, he was always indecent and bullied her. How could someone like him be her future husband? Su Lingxian imagined what would happen if she got married to Wang Teng. She would get bullied by him every day. She shivered in fear and looked at Gorlin pitifully. Master, save me, Gorlin. Gorlin wanted to shout at Dan Taixian. You bastard, how dare you lay your hands on my disciple? But, thinking about it, Wang Teng was his disciple too. If he scolded his disciple for the sake of another disciple, would it even be considered helping them? He felt so frustrated that he wanted to vomit blood. This was a trap, a clever, intricate trap. This lady was hard to deal with. In the end, he coughed awkwardly and said, "Let the younger generations decide their futures themselves. We shouldn't interfere. In this era, even our Xingwu continent doesn't have arranged marriages anymore. Is your world still the same? Ha ha ha, I'm just joking. I'm too lazy to care about the youngsters' lives." Dan Taixian patted Su Lingxian's shoulder and said, "Don't worry. If you're unwilling, no one can force you." Su Lingxian heaved a sigh of relief immediately. Oh my god, what a rude shock. Master, we'll be leaving. Master Gorlin just recovered and needs to rest, Wang Ting said in a helpless tone. You're right. Master Gorlin has to get some rest. We will have more chances to interact in the future. Dan Taixian gave Wang Ting a disappointed glare before smiling at Gorlin. Wang Ting, you're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.